Oh, hello. I didn't see you come in. Welcome to Bitcoin Talk Show. It is Wednesday, and it is 3:30 here on the East Coast, and that means it's time to get started. This is a call-in show. It like harkens back to the days of old radio, where you just dial up your local station and talk about whatever you want. Well, that's what we do here on this show. My co-host Thomas of Mad Bitcoins is joining me this evening. Hello, Thomas.
Good morning, Derek.
How you doing?
Doing good.
You say it's morning because it's morning over where you are.
Still, just
You're
barely,
on the West
just a
Coast.
little bit. Starting to get afternoon.
It's cool. So we're getting ready over here. We've got a lot to talk about Ethereum and New York regulations that happened this week. But if you've got thoughts that you want to share, your thoughts and concerns come first. You can call into the show. Our number is 708-232-6467. You can dial in on your telephone, or you can Skype into the show. Bitcoin Talk Show is the Skype username. Just send a contact request. It will be accepted. Look, we're accepting one right now. And you can dial into the show. So welcome. Feel free to make your thoughts known, but we'll get started with what I think is the biggest news of the week. Ethereum is now releasing Ether, so it can be purchased at a rate of 2,000 Ether per Bitcoin for the next 13 days. What effect will this have on the price, if any? What do you think, Thomas?
On the price of Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think this could affect the price of Bitcoin because people have been waiting for a long time to see what Ethereum will bring. It's really one of the main competitors to Bitcoin. People have been calling it Bitcoin 2.0. If people aren't familiar yet, it's a technology that allows for apps or programs to be stored on the blockchain and accessed by anyone. They can be written by anyone. And it's a revolutionary new idea. One thing that concerns me, did you see this post all the way at the bottom? I think once you sign up, Thomas, it says, oh, Ethereum might not actually ever happen. So, just consider that when you're spending your money and sending us your Bitcoins. It was, really weird. I saw Brian Sovereign of Sovereign Tech posting about that. Oh, look, you're pulling up his post right there.
Trying to find it, but yeah. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Well, that's what he was talking about. He was like, what the heck is this? And then, what does that say, Thomas? Can you read it aloud for us? It's a little small.
Says, purchaser, 19.9, risk that the Ethereum platform may never be completed or released. Purchaser understands that while the Ethereum team will make reasonable efforts to complete the Ethereum software, it is possible that an official completed version of the Ethereum platform may not be released, and there may never be an operational Ethereum platform.
What?
That's why most companies write their software first, and then they sell it to you, then they release it. Or if they do a pre-sale like this, they pre-sale parts of the corporation. Maybe we could own part of the Ethereum company, but that's not what's being offered here. We're literally being offered the chance to buy Ether, which sometimes means air, and just that thing that connects all other things. We're now being a chance to buy that.
Why don't you give us your Bitcoins? We've got a great idea, and it might never happen. That's a great way to raise $4 million in one day. I mean, I am impressed.
They've sold 10 million Ether, which if we divide that by 2,000, and then it's around 4,500 Bitcoins, which is around $3.2 million right now.
Why is it so tempting, Thomas? Why aren't I just calling these people snake oil salesmen? I myself want some Ether. I might lay down a couple of Bitcoins for them. But I don't even know what I'm going to do with them. And I don't even know if the project will ever be completed. I mean, there are a lot of people working on it. And this sort of gets me thinking, if there are enough people who donate, now there's been $4 million put into this project, and these people have their Bitcoins at stake, are they really going to say, I could just lose my Bitcoins, that's fine, they don't have to finish the project. If they don't finish, there are going to be people going down to the offices or where they work and saying like, hey, I can help you with that, or hey, I can help you finish this. Like, it's going to be more, people have an incentive now to finish the project because they've put money in it, rather than waiting, people who don't have money yet, starting and finishing a project and then trying to sell it. It seems like it's a gamble, but it's a smart way to do the business, right?
I feel the same way about Ethereum that I do about MadeSafe. I really like the idea, but I don't understand how I'm supposed to invest before the product comes out or before the company is really formed. And it's very hard to understand what you're actually investing in. I know MadeSafe sold Safe Coin, which will be traded for actual MadeSafe coin at some point. I know Ethereum now is trying to sell Ethereum as a coin itself that'll be used on their network. It's not clear how all of this works exactly. It's a very strange investment to be making.
Do you have the Ethereum client on your computer?
I don't yet, no.
Okay, me neither. I think I downloaded it once. We talked about this like last week. I was like, oh, I downloaded it. Something went wrong. I never tried to fix it because I can't do anything with it anyway. But hopefully now I'll be able to play around. I'll at least be able to change my balance and have some ether. That'll be fun. I'll change the variable from 0 to, I don't know, something of value. And so I noticed this. This is the first thing I saw when I went to ethereum.org. I've said, oh, what are these things going for? 1 Bitcoin buys 2,000 Ether. That's the current price. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. So that's a weird, round number for a price. But then I was like, oh, the time remaining at current price is 13 days. So they've got 2 weeks on this that they're selling this thing. I don't know if you can see that on your screen, but I'll try and make it a little bigger. They are structuring this so that there is a limited amount of time to buy Ether, and then the next price that they list is 1 Bitcoin buys 1,970 Ether. So I was like, in this mad rush, right, to go buy some Ether because I heard this stuff is for sale, and then I'm like, oh, I've got like 2 weeks, and even then the price drop is not even significant. So if they're fixing the price of Ethereum to Bitcoin right now, and they're saying 2,000 Ether buys 1 Bitcoin, then that's why I started to think, what if this affects the price of Bitcoin itself? Because so many people were waiting to get in on this. If they dump a bunch of Bitcoin for Ether, then the price of Bitcoin will go down, and that would make the price of Ether, since it's going to stay the same per Bitcoin, that would make the value of each Ether also go down. You see what I'm saying? So
I don't think that they've reached any kind of numbers where they're going to affect Bitcoin. Remember, Bitcoin's about $8 billion right now, so if we say that's $8,000, then they've raised around $3,000. Or they've
You're
raised
right.
$3, 3 of the 8.
You're right. I just am pointing out like the extremes here. If they really were thinking about price structuring and like a market for what they're selling, like why would they fix it to the price of Bitcoin? I don't know. It just seems a little weird to me.
It's really hard to tell, like, when these tokens are actually in use, what will the value or cost of a smart contract be? Will it be like?
Well, apparently it's going to take a few Ether to execute something, right? So like,
how much? How much Ether? You're asking people to buy this thing now. You should be able to tell them this kind of thing. Like, what? When you get to the other side, what if they find out that 2,000 Ether for a Bitcoin was way too much, and they should be selling tons more Ether, and they devalue the thing? Or what if it was way too much, and now you have more contracts than you could ever use? What can you do with this stuff? I mean, I don't know. It would be nice to have a representative on YouTube, someone that would talk to us. If you represent Ethereum and you want to talk to us at the World Crypto Network, contact us through our webpage or Reddit or something.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Reddit, that's a new thing for the World Crypto Network this week. Tell us about it, Thomas. What would we find if we go to reddit.com/r/World Crypto Network?
Well, here we are. I've just done the little Reddit graphic this morning, so we have a little World Crypto Network Reddit guy. And cool. Chris set this up for us. A lot of people have been talking about the need for a forum on World Crypto Network, and I'm just not crazy about forums. They get really big. There's all those pages with all the comments, 30 pages of replies. I don't know what to do with that. But Reddit seems like a good solution for us. Good comments will be voted up. Good stories, good ideas will be voted up. And it's just a way to discuss all the ideas that we've been having with the World Crypto Network here. And basically, Chris has been, like, our basic idea first was just kind of try to get people to do weekly shows together, do one show every week, get 5 or 6 people, do a whole week of shows. And we've pretty much hit that now. We're also looking at the CNN idea of having more of a 24/7 crypto network so that you could tune in all the time and at least, hear the latest news, hear people talking about the latest news. But I really think now Chris is really expanding these ideas, and we might go towards actually doing kind of all of my ideas, which, again, I would share with everyone else. These are everyone else's ideas as well, and a lot of these have been already discussed in other coins, and I just think that we might have a chance to combine them into this news network, into this idea of everyone having a show, everyone having a voice, everyone being a part of this, and actually being able to fund it and organize the software that we need with the Bitcoin, with the digital currency.
Speaking of all the news that's happened in the world of Bitcoin this week, I have a GIF that I wanted to share with you that I found. Perhaps you've already seen it at the Bitcoin Reddit page, but I think it accurately embodies the way Bitcoin has stayed completely stable while the rest of the world's news has been insane. I mean, there's like World War III happening in the Middle East. There have been Bitcoin regulations announced in New York. Ethereum has been released. All the news that we haven't yet talked about, and here's this guy dancing, representing the world with all of its outrageous news. And then there's Bitcoin, the beer glass, just chilling there, totally stable.
Don't spill the Bitcoins.
And I won't. So I have another fun thing to share with the video audience. There was a completely awesome TV ad which has been released on real TV.
Bitcoin crashed last Sunday.
So here it is.
Doesn't make any sense. Some computer programmer and code robot guy nobody's ever heard of. If it was money, we would call Bitcoin money. They don't call it money. You can't buy anything with Bitcoin, pizza, and drugs. And Silk Road shut down, so you can't buy drugs. When are you ever going to be able to buy anything with Bitcoin?
You want to help with these?
How did you...
Troll, please. The Viva Bitcoin wallet. Now, plus gifts.
Oh, that was awesome. And I have this objection all the time. People are like, but you can't buy anything with it. I'm like, I've been buying stuff with Bitcoin for 2 years. Where have you been? Dell now accepts Bitcoin. You can use Gift on your phone to purchase real goods in real stores with Bitcoin, like 50,000 different retailers across the country. So all you people who are like, oh, I can't buy anything, it'll never be a real currency. You're too late. I can't believe you're not paying attention. You can already buy stuff with Bitcoin and have been for years. And this is awesome that it's like there's a real TV ad that takes on the persona of that particular argument. The people saying, oh, you can't buy anything with it, it's not real. And like makes him kind of cool, kind of hipsterish. But he's like not clean shaven. He's a little scruffy and looking like kind of a mess. So he kind of is cool and knows what's going on. But the girl, she's hip, she's quick, she's fast. She's already at Whole Foods using her Bitcoins to go buy groceries. A perfect ad.
Another great message for women in Bitcoin. The woman's the one that knows how to use the Bitcoin. She has it on her phone. She goes and gets the groceries. And that's a good, women spend money. And we need women to spend Bitcoins. That's what we're talking about here.
Well, I don't need women to spend Bitcoins, but I would like that.
That's 50% of the population. We need them on board, like numbers-wise. We can't give up 50% of the population because the internet's full of geeks.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying one way or another. I'm not saying like I don't need women, but I'm not saying like, oh, there's this lack of women in the Bitcoin community. I think there's plenty. There are a lot of women in the Bitcoin community. who have been making names for themselves. So I don't know. I feel like it's pretty. I don't know. I guess there's a different perception all over. And here I am in Keene, and where I was in Philadelphia. You know, to be fair, actually, there are more women here in Keene that use Bitcoin than there were in Philadelphia. It was more of a boys' club, like a techie club. What's your perception been like? Am I just totally out in left field here, where I think that women are totally included already in Bitcoin?
Well, I went to like DogeCon, the Doge convention, and it's mainly men. I mean, it's a lot of men with their girlfriends, that kind of feeling. Like what we need are those groups of girls where they'll decide on their own to go to a Bitcoin meetup as a group, and then maybe keep coming back to that meetup. I don't know how true it is, but I'm sure you remember that one story where I think she was a reporter, maybe she was a blogger. She went to a Bitcoin meetup and she got hit on badly.
Sexually harassed. Yeah. Oh, horrible.
Badly. And I just worry that either that's happening, overtly with that guy who's like a pickup artist, or that it's happening just because the geeks are nervous about it, or they don't want to sit next to the girl, or if there's only one girl at a group of 10 guys. I agree, it's a totally different situation. It's something that, as a guy, we don't understand. We're very rarely in a group of like 9 women, 1 guy. But you have to, imagine what that would be like. You have to.
We got to get more women on the Bitcoin Talk Show. I'll invite some women in Bitcoin that I know. I often, like last week, I think I wore my Bitcoin Girls Night Out shirt, Bitcoin GNO, which is a social group that many women are a part of on Google+. They meet every week, I think, to talk about Bitcoin-related stuff and non-Bitcoin-related stuff. They're just ladies who like to hang out, and they have one thing in common that unites them. They love Bitcoin.
They might even be having a meeting right now, because I asked Marguerite to join our talk show here, but she went to the private meeting instead. So.
Oh, cool! That's awesome. Yeah, I was chatting with Michelle Seven, also of Bitcoin GNO, right before this show, and said, "Hey, I have to go. I got to do Bitcoin Talk Show. Talk to you later." All right. So you know what else is fun? Eric Voorhees kicked ass this week when he wrote his article at moneyandstate.com titled "Reflections on the NYDFS Bitcoin Proposal and the Right of Privacy." It's completely awesome. It's a little bit long, but I want to read it. It's totally worth going through. It'll only take a few minutes. What do you think, Thomas? You ready to go? Buckle in?
Yeah.
Okay. Today, as human society progressed onward, what do you think? Should I do a screen share of this, or do people want to see my face? Why don't I show the text? There we go. Today, as human society progresses onward, CoinMap broke 5,000 global business listings. South African payment processor PayFast enabled their 30,000 merchants to accept Bitcoin, and the New York Department of Financial Services made financial privacy a crime. Supported, at least superficially, by some leaders in the Bitcoin industry. Let's review. The proposed digital currency regulation from Benjamin Lalski, the superintendent of 20 million, or 6 billion, people's financial decisions, has been on the horizon for months. New York is known for dictating how people live, and so as more people are incorporating Bitcoin into their lives, New York bureaucrats would inevitably attempt to place it under surveillance and control. With the best intentions, naturally. According to the new mandates, you will soon be unable to lawfully purchase a Bitcoin from any company that A, has any customers in New York, and B, doesn't keep an aggregated surveillance list of all customers, including name, address, photo ID, and other identifying information, regardless of the amounts transacted. And if the company you'd like to buy from if the company you'd like to buy from does satisfy New York's rules, then you will then be required to add yourself to this surveillance list. having then trust not only in the company and not only in the government, but also in every other third party that may obtain such information, not to abuse it. Consider now that an Italian wishing to buy $100 of Bitcoin from Bitstamp in Slovenia will now be forced to provide all his personal details, which will go on file with the United States government and any third parties able to obtain that file, because Bitstamp has some customers in New York. The American government, not satisfied with continually carving away the freedoms of its own people, now heads abroad in search of freedoms elsewhere to slay. Ironically, one of the most highlighted pretenses for New York's new regulations is, quote, consumer protection. And indeed, these new mandates attempt to assure you of your state-sponsored safety by requiring background checks on the company's founders, another American myth, the presumption of innocence, requiring expensive bonds and insurance, goodbye college startup, and forcing companies' IT security to satisfy government standards, which should all make us feel safe. So you are assured of your safety. But then, of course, it's wrestled back away upon compulsion to expose your personal details. How can it be in the interest of a consumer to force them to reveal their identity, submitting personally identifying documents directly to private companies and then indirectly to various government agencies, and then periodically to hackers and third parties who otherwise will inevitably obtain it? How does that protect the consumer? Let's be truthful. This exposes the consumer. It renders him a serf upon a farm of information production, used for purposes both benevolent and vile, without any say in the matter. Blake Anderson joins us on the World Crypto Network's Bitcoin Talk Show. Hey Blake, are you here with us?
Yes, hello. What is going on, my good friend Eric? How are you today?
Hey, it's good to see you and hear you. So you have been listening to this article so far. We're going to pick it up in just a moment, but your thoughts so far?
Yeah, I think that it's really, really great what you've been saying so far. It's like, you know, protect my consumers with theft and taxes is what I was typing in chat at you. And then you were saying that, yeah, they're going to record information and make you reveal who you are. And it's like, that sounds like a violation of the Fourth Amendment to me. I mean, you know, I'm not that smart, but that sounds like, you know, we already have things set up that should protect us from that. And then you were saying that, you know, hackers get that information too because, you know, maybe they secure their stuff with good risk management, maybe they don't. So that's an extra avenue of risk, which is the opposite of protection, which is, you know, inherently risk management. So I was just sitting here tickled listening to you say all this stuff and this you know, powerhouse knockdown of the lies that New York is trying to feed us to get control over the system.
Well, that's because it comes from Eric Voorhees, and he always hits a home run. So picking up from the article at moneyandstate.com, Eric Voorhees writes, the information you expose to anyone does not remain solely with the recipient of that exposure. If the government forces the exposure of your personal information, will it also do you the courtesy of guaranteeing the safety of the same? It cannot. Let's examine the credit card industry, which is highly regulated by the same wise and benevolent agencies now groping Bitcoin. Have we already forgotten Target Corporation's breach, leading to millions of people's personal information being compromised? And is that an isolated incident? Or the billions of dollars in losses every year due to identity theft? This is real harm, both personal and economic, being done perpetually to the American public because they have to divulge all their personal information to engage with each other economically. Finally, at long last, Bitcoin provides a way to make at-distance economic exchange without surrendering personal info. And Benjamin Lawsky rides in on his white horse, taxpayer-funded, to make sure that privacy is illegal, and once again wrests society back into the dark ages of financial technology. His justification is that he may be able to freeze some criminal funds, so endangering 350 million Americans is justified because he's protecting Americans. The premise of such regulations foster consumer protection is absurd. Do consumers not deserve the right to remain private if they've not been accused of a crime? And do they not deserve privacy on both sides of the transaction, buying Bitcoin and spending it? Do they deserve to be forced to reveal who they are, where they live, what they look like, how to get in contact with them, and in what manner they choose to make financial decisions? Is this the mark of a society that values the liberty of its citizens? That it may make it easier for the state to fight crime if every citizen reveals who they are and what they're doing does not justify such intrusion. This is the impetus by which evil groups come to dominate and subvert, regardless of whether they were evil to begin with. An honest America now must change its slogan from "Land of the Free" to "Papers, Citizen." This is not consumer protection. This is explicit surveillance of private citizens who are not accused nor even under suspicion of committing a crime. Or perhaps suspicion is now assumed on all cases. A foundational legal principle of American society, the presumption of innocence, is through such mandates humiliated and desecrated, all by people who believe they are, quote, advocates of the law. Are we now presumed to be criminals, and thus must permit ourselves to be watched in whichever way the state deems appropriate, so that our activities may be blessed before we proceed? Is this not exactly the financial censorship for which Bitcoin was intended as the antidote? Some don't seem to think so. Bitcoin visionaries Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss responded to the announcement with the following: "We are pleased that Super Nintendo Lawsky and Department of Financial Services have embraced Bitcoin and digital assets and created a regulatory framework that protects consumers. We look forward to New York becoming the hub of this exciting new technology." Cameron and Tyler, this is shameful. Lawsky has embraced Bitcoin? Really? Dozens of dictates which mandate state surveillance and censorship is the very antithesis of Bitcoin. This is not an embrace. It is the chaining of a generation's most important invention to the failed financial infrastructure for which Bitcoin was an explicit refutation. But let's not hastily cast the Winklevi among Bitcoin's true enemies. After all, Occam's razor might suggest that the brothers simply don't want regulatory scrutiny brought down upon them, as they're trying to get their own fund approved. And thus, they feel compelled to not only comply with these absurd mandates, but to advocate on behalf of them. But then, what does it say about our great nation that industry leaders cower before the superintendent and lend their reputational support so as not to draw ire? Does this sound American to you? What does the American ideal and the Bitcoin ideal stand for, if not stalwart resistance to this very encroachment of the state into private industry? But it's worse. To all Bitcoin industry entrepreneurs and advocates, This new regulation makes private e-wallets illegal. Read this sentence again. To all Bitcoin industry, entrepreneur, and advocates, this new regulation makes private e-wallets illegal. If you spend your time, money, and creative energies building a platform in which users may securely deposit and store their digital assets, you must now require them to send you personally identifying information. You must take their name. You must take their address. You must get a photo ID of this person verified against government checklists. You must watch their transactions and decide whether or not they're suspicious. You must package all of this information into a database to which state agencies are permitted unlimited oversight and privilege. But even before initiating your Orwellian spy list, you must submit yourself to a process of applying for state-sponsored licenses. You must bribe the government with money, or they will shut you down. It's called a bond or a licensing fee. You must invite state-approved IT security forces to review your system. If they wish to insert a snippet of code into your software, you shall comply, or be tried for money laundering and conspiracy to commit all manner of crimes. Think I'm making this up? Please. How can anyone involved in Bitcoin morally support this? You are being forced to spy on your users and report private information to government agents with neither accusation nor even suspicion of a crime. How can you advocate the innovation that Bitcoin brings and simultaneously support such a decree? Do you have no line in the sand? At what point do you stand up like someone who knows right from wrong and assert your opposition to one of the most corrupt organizations on the planet? Not today, you say? Are you listening, Jeremy Allaire? Are you listening, Armstrong and Ersham? Are you listening, Winklevi and Anderson? You are leaders of the industry. Well, where are you leading it? Don't want to bring negative attention upon yourselves? Fine. I understand that. But what are you going out of your way to publicly endorse these anachronistic legislations for? Doing so means your explicit approval of all Bitcoin users being under perpetual surveillance. By what moral perversion do you justify such advocacy? Further, it will now be mandated that any bright engineer obtain a state license before releasing his new digital currency, and may only then innovate in a state-approved manner. No digital ledger system may be published for the world to view without state approval, according to the NYDFS. Quote, controlling, administering, or issuing a virtual currency is now a government-approved and thus government-censored enterprise. Industry leaders, do you really support this? This would mean Satoshi Nakamoto himself would have committed a crime if his genius released Bitcoin today, unless he explicitly barred New Yorkers from using it. To do it lawfully, he would have been required to register, obtain approval, and make his identity known to all. You approve of a background check on Satoshi Nakamoto? You approve of him being forced to put up a bond before he's permitted to release the Genesis block? Bitcoin would not have been released legally if this legislation existed in 2008. Why do you support it being released in 2014? This is the fostering of innovation now levied by NYDFS, and you are supporting it. Cryptocurrency innovation, also known as business, must first be approved and anointed by the state of New York. Is that your idea of monetary progress for a world so desperately in need of it? How can you support this? Alas, what conclusion can be drawn from Losky's proclamation other than the following? Bitcoin shall be tossed into the same unethical regulatory mess that currently governs the legacy banking system. It shall comply with the same mandates, be governed the same way, and by the same people. It shall be censored with the same prejudices, and serve as an Orwellian tool of law enforcement in the same corrupt and deleterious manner. Its protection of privacy, illegal. Its advocacy of neutrality, ignored. Its efficiencies, minimized.
Hello?
Well, this is primarily a call-in show, so we've opened up the lines. We will interrupt this broadcast. Oops.
That was me jokingly saying hello. I don't know if we picked it up, actually.
Okay. Well, I'm going to end... I don't know how to...
I would just keep on keeping on.
Okay, well, I've got some screen I had to get rid of. Okay. Thanks for the call. You can call into the show if you have thoughts that you want to share. Skype us at BitcoinTalkShow or dial 708-232-6467, and we will gladly interrupt whatever we're talking about to take your call. So its protection of privacy, illegal. Its advocacy of neutrality, ignored. Its efficiencies, minimized. Its decentralized, market-based governance, forced to revert to centralized, state-based coercion. Why? Because the men with guns... Sorry, I don't know why we keep getting a call on that line. That line shouldn't be open. Anyway. Why? Because the men with guns say so, and the men with the businesses don't really want to make a fuss about it. Quote, examinations of licenses will be conducted whenever the superintendent deems necessary. That from the New York Department of Financial Services. Consider whether this, quote, is more benefiting of legislation in the United States of America or Soviet Russia. Is it befitting of Bitcoin? Are we all inspired to build a system in which, quote, examinations will be conducted whenever the superintendent deems necessary? Is that what we're bringing to the world? More of that? I don't expect those who make their living through coercion to understand or appreciate this distinction. But I do hope that respectable people, good citizens, men of character, honest Bitcoin innovators and businessmen, take it to heart in both their words and actions. If you don't want to speak out against this nonsense for fear of retribution, fine. That is understandable. But if you speak out in advocacy of the very injustices from which Bitcoin is trying to lead society, I'd advise you to check whether you're veering dangerously close to incompatibility with a free and open financial system, and consider whether you will end up on the right side of history. We will take this next call. As we're connecting, caller, you are on the line with Bitcoin Talk Show. Go ahead with your thoughts.
You guys live?
Yes, we are live.
Yes, we are live. Okay, I tried calling earlier and it went to voicemail.
Yep, you're on.
Excellent. So I'm calling from Nepal. This is quite a ways away from where you guys are broadcasting. But I wanted to talk about, well, the first thing was Ethereum. I think you guys had some questions about the coin generation and the denominations.
Yes.
Yes. So,
and if you would, mute the broadcast on the other side or close out the window because we're hearing an echo.
Okay, got you. So the way I understand it, and take this with a grain of salt, but the denominations are, if you compare it to Bitcoin, the smallest denomination is called a WEI. It's a W-E-I. It's named after one of the authors that's cited in Nakamoto's paper. And I believe there's 10 to the 18th WEIs in one ether, if that makes any sense.
Okay. So each ether can be divided up. And we are still hearing an echo. So if you will close out of whatever kind of program you've got open.
I'm actually calling you from a landline. I think the echo is because it has to traverse the globe halfway through.
Oh, okay.
Everything's off. Oh, okay. Yeah. So that gives you a lot of sort of scope for transactions. But I think they're still working out what the minimum transaction fees will be, and I think that's dynamic. It's supposed to be a floating point number, kind of like what Bitcoin is trying to implement. And so there is no cap on the total amount of ethers that are generated. It's based upon the number of ethers that will be bought in the next 40 days. And that is multiplied by 0.5, and that basically this year and then in the upcoming years. So it is an inflationary currency, if you will, or fuel, I think is the right term.
And what is your capacity? In which way do you work with Bitcoin or with Ethereum?
So I'm actually a code contributor. I'm not a core code contributor, but I've been working on Bitcoin for about a year, and I've made some transactions on the testnet on Ether. So if you download the client, you can actually sort of start mining coins. The test network, the real network, is a couple of stuff on Ethereum right now. Very limited, of course.
What can I do?
You can write a. You can fuel a transaction. You can write your own coin. There's already a couple of coins on there. They're named. It's sort of a, but they're named after some of the developers. They will also provide you sort of some code that allows you to sort of program Namecoin or a MetaCoin. It's on the website, and you can sort of copy and paste that down, and that will become your contract. And then you fuel the contract with Ethereum or with Ethers, and then it becomes alive, I guess.
One of the questions we had earlier in the program, and if you could close whatever broadcast is open, that would be much appreciated. The question was, how much Ether will it take to execute an app?
So that's where the denominations come in. So let's say that it'll be based on a floating point number, but the WEIs is the unit you use to sort of transact with the network, right? So you have, in effect, 10 to the 18th WEIs, and if it happens to be 1 WEI per transaction, then you have that many transactions you can do.
Do you have any examples of these transactions?
Do I have any what?
Do you have any examples of these transactions?
Nothing that I can show you on the phone, but have you tried downloading the client?
Has anyone on the program downloaded the Ethereum client? I tried to do it myself, but I had some difficulty, as we explained last week, and I gave up. But I would happily try again if I had some encouragement or instruction.
Well, let me jump in here really quick. We're getting really micro and specific here. What we should talk about for just a second is the fact of what Ethereum is and why it has value and what it does, what its role is in this community. The role of Ethereum is to link up with the Bitcoin system and to make it so that the trustless area of Bitcoin is able to reach out into other things and to help the trustless or the risk management managed system reach into contracts and exploration and various different other applications and protocols that can help get the same ideas that Bitcoin has into the rest of basically non-tangible life.
Well, I appreciate the caller. Thanks so much for dialing in all the way from Nepal. Please do try and connect on our Skype line. It's BitcoinTalkShow is our Skype connection. We'd be happy to have you call us anytime there if you have more thoughts on Ethereum. It was just a little bit wonky. We were getting weird echo from the phone. Not quite sure why that was, but very much appreciate you sharing that. And thanks for the clarification as well, Blake. This article
sometimes it's good to get a high-level kind of overview of why something is cool to look into, and then the micro examination of exactly how to do it and stuff kind of flows naturally from the why.
I'd like to see us do a live download of the Ethereum program and maybe try and play around, see if we can get it working and how quick that could take. I mean, I'm sure we could do it in one of these episodes. So let me just quickly finish up this article. It is almost finished. I believe we were on the last paragraph while that caller dialed in. Eric Voorhees was saying, hey, if you don't want to speak out against this because you're afraid of retribution, I get that. But why would you speak out in favor of something that is the antithesis of Bitcoin? He concludes, let's hope the builders of this most important technology don't continue to embarrass themselves by forgetting what they're building. Fortunately, a technology like Bitcoin will lead humanity in its own direction, despite the most eloquent proclamations from kings of any country, or the cowed groveling of their entranced subjects. To those of you who are out there speaking and struggling for freedom, thank you. In liberty, Eric Voorhees.
That's absolutely incredible. Wow.
Is he not amazing?
Nature.
Yeah, I mean, that is so eloquently written, so to the point. I mean, he repeats himself a few times, but he really nails the point home. How can you support this? He's asking himself, and I imagine a person like Eric, who spends so much time in the Bitcoin world, he must be, all the time working on Bitcoin projects, talking to other people around the world who are working on Bitcoin, to be faced with people of such high notoriety as the Winklevi twins, supporting something that he finds so vile, so something to be the opposite of everything that Bitcoin stands for, something that would have made Satoshi Nakamoto a criminal. How can they support it? It must drive him completely mad. And it drives me plenty mad, but I don't spend near as much time in the Bitcoin world as Eric Voorhees. So,
well, I mean, for his emotions relative to this situation, I would say that a good vehicle to communicate maybe how he feels is when you're driving. When you're driving your automobile and you see people around you being really, really reckless and unaware, it really makes you mad. And it makes you mad because it is a life-threatening situation that people take into their own hands when they're driving, and it's really, really important. And when people are like, that's where kind of the road rage stuff comes from. It'll make people that don't usually get so mad pretty upset. And Eric sees this as a system that is of, vital importance. It's a life and death situation, and when people are coming in and fucking it up like this, for lack of a better word, it's something that makes you really, really, really angry. And I've tried not to talk about this too much for lack of wanting to have the blowback, because I don't want that either. But I'm not going to go out and be like, yeah, let's get behind something that made what Satoshi did illegal. I mean, that's absolutely horrifying. So he knocked it out of the park. Yeah, absolutely.
It makes no sense. I mean, yeah, I understand where he's coming from, saying, I don't get this. How could you support it? These people are crazy, and it's like fire. Fire is just a tool. If Prometheus were to use fire to torture people, that would be a bad use of fire, right? But we can use fire to heat our homes and cook our food, and there are great applications of fire. So that's a technology.
Somebody might get burned. Everybody has to freeze to death. No more cooking of food. No more combustion. We need to protect people. No more heat. No more fire.
If you want to have fire, you have to get a license.
A fire license.
Yeah,
You're gonna need to put
That is
your
how
address on form if you want to have some of our fire. Like, it's very clear now.
I mean, these people didn't even invent the fire themselves. They just claim to rule over us, and so we have to submit to whatever they order us to do.
Yeah, it's like
me.
Steve Hughes talks about health and safety, and everything's about health and safety. You can't even reheat a pie. You can't even have hot pie because it's against health and safety to have an electrical oven in a food cooking establishment because the governments have become so insane in parts of Europe. It's like the most hilarious / horrifying comic sketch I've ever seen in my life. Steve Hughes is hilarious. I recommend everybody checks him out relative to exactly kind of the more ironic points of the Voorhees paper.
Well, I'm going nuts. This is making me want to smoke. I'm so mad. After reading that article, when I read it the first time, I mean, I was really happy because I was like, yeah, he got it. He nailed it. He's just going to publish this article and everyone's going to be like, oh, I can't believe it. What was I thinking? But no, that's not immediately what happened. And
I want to stand up for the idea of consumer protection. I think consumer protection is a good idea, and there's a lot of cases where the consumer is protected by the state. Seatbelts, airbags. But this is a case where they've taken... I like seatbelts and airbags. Even if they're required.
They kill people.
They kill small people.
And
but,
no,
I'm a small people.
And in the state where they're not required, they have the safest driving of all it's New Hampshire. It doesn't require seatbelts.
That's only one state, and the scientific example is too small. I would need more example.
Well, I just think that the ancient
philosophical example.
Yeah, the ancient axiom, which is self-evident, is that which is good and just when pursued by fraud, force, or coercion becomes bad and unjust. And even if it's a good thing with the airbags and stuff like that, forcing people to use them causes problems to get really weird and existential and macro. That we're like, where did this problem even come from? And it, I think, comes from that axiom being violated.
Yeah, well, I stand up for consumer protection too, Thomas. And you know who looks out for the consumer? The businesses who are fighting for the consumer's money. The state just demands money. They have no
captured businesses
whether or not they're actually helping people.
I won't remind you of General Motors, who didn't replace a $10 part and cost thousands of lives.
But they're a captured business though, because
General Motors is the state.
It is. I get what you're both saying, and what we're all doing is we're identifying various pernicious features of the system that's all an Ouroboros circle eating its own tail, and we can't tell where one starts and the other begins because it's all been fucked up for so long.
You've seen Network. Who here hasn't seen Network? You know that
I love that movie.
You know that the U.S. is a fascist country and that the major corporations are in bed with the state. That's not news to anyone who watches this show, right? We all know that. So bring up the example of General Motors is to say the state didn't do what people needed to do in terms of...
The state didn't directly control General Motors. They didn't make that decision. I don't believe that decision was even made while they were owned by the state. I think it predated the state briefly controlling General Motors. So
that's not what I mean. I don't mean they're controlled bankruptcy, whatever you want to call it, with the 2008 collapse and the various financial hardships that went on there. I mean that the fuel and the roads and the intellectual property, suspension of progress of the fossil fuel and the cars and all that stuff is very deeply connected and very much in bed with the government and the states and these ideas of force. And I agree with you that there's companies that we can name that were like, this company screwed everybody over. But if we really zoom out and take in the true scope and stuff, it's all tied together, and the governments and all of it and the corporations and the government are working together. And I think it's, we're all talking about the same thing, but different pieces of it, I think.
Yes,
the state is the one that has power to coerce people to do things at gunpoint. Businesses don't have that power.
See, now I agree with Voorhees that you had to expect the Winklevi twins, you have to expect some of the other businessmen in this sphere to agree with Lawsky, right? To agree that there should be some kind of laws and regulation. But this first draft of the laws was just so incredibly draconian that they really did need to wait and maybe read it for themselves before they agreed to it. I'm not sure that they did read it. That could be the issue. So.
Hey, Will Pangman is joining us.
What's up? My best friend in the world.
From Milwaukee.
Hey guys, it's good to see it's good to see you, Derek and Tom. It's been a little while. Blake, it's good to see you. It hasn't been
forever.
A little while.
You changed your Twitter handle.
I did. What does it say right? Oh yeah, this is for Topeki. So follow us on join Topeki on Twitter.
What's
follow it up.
Topeki? Oh come on! I handed you a plug.
I heard a couple people talking at that point. Yeah, Topeki is a personal finance app for cryptocurrencies. So keep an eye out. Go to topeki.com, join the email list, follow us on Twitter right down here.
Cool. And what are your thoughts on what's going on with the New York regulations?
I think Bruce Fenton sent out a tweet that pretty much encapsulated my sentiments. It was someone no one elected is writing laws no one asked for to take care of problems that don't exist. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Bruce Fenton is the man. If you don't know who Bruce Fenton is and you like Bitcoin, find out, because Bruce Fenton is like the nicest guy ever, and his tweets just slay me because they're always like, yes, dude, exactly. So I agree with Will very much. I like that tweet too, and it summarizes my feelings. What's
Bruce Fenton do? He's it says he's an advisor for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on LinkedIn, and he's the chief investment officer at the Bitcoin Association president or something.
Yeah, so the Bitcoin Association, I can talk to that a little bit. The Bitcoin Association is kind of like I guess my little like layman's description would be it's what the Bitcoin Foundation isn't in a way. So and it's not even actually like fully launched or public or anything yet, because they're waiting for the distributed autonomous organization software to really get up to speed, and then they're gonna release the organization as a DAC or a DAO, using Ethereum or Mastercoin or one of these next generation protocols, so that they, basically they don't even trust human beings in the interim to operate in a decentralized enough fashion to preserve its decentralization as an organization. So they're going to wait for DAOs to come online. They're going to use that to actually launch the organization. So interesting project.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's right in the vein of where we need to go with all this stuff. Like, I was smiling like a grinning fool the whole time you were explaining it, because it's like Bruce gets it. Like, he really, really, like, I know Bruce, and I've talked to him and stuff in person, and I would consider him my friend, and I know that he's a good person, and so when he comes to me with these various different ideas, it's like, wow, this is exactly the same kind of an idea that I would expect from somebody that I know and is acting like me and that is in the space. And so, like, Bruce is the man, and here's a clip of him, I think, is it in Chicago, where he talks about all this nonsense, very similar to Eric.
This is in a completely opposite land from Chicago. This is Bruce. I was at this close, though. I was at this speech in New Hampshire at the Liberty Forum in 2014. Here he is speaking to a crowd, talking about Bitcoin. He almost kicked off the whole event. Here he is talking.
One of the most significant inventions in modern human history. It's something that certainly since the internet, I think we've seen maybe nothing or almost nothing that is this important. And even in the course of human history, we've seen very few things that are as important as this invention.
So that's his thoughts on it. You can tell he's very serious about how important Bitcoin is. You can check that speech out on his YouTube page.
And people rip on Bruce Fenton sometimes for the Bill Gates thing. They're like, oh, he talked to Bill Gates. It's like, well, what do you think he talked to Bill Gates about? And I've talked to him about it. He talked to Bill Gates about Bitcoin. So it's like, yes, like let's get these people to know. And maybe if they're savable at all, or whatever you want to call it, like, good. I'm glad that he was like, I'm gonna go and use any interface or leverage I have at all and talk to him about Bitcoin. So like, go Bruce. I'm a part of the fan club. So join me.
I agree. Should we just watch the Bruce video or what? I'm good. I feel like I just wanted to talk about the regulation stuff. I'm just so mad about it. But then where do you go with it? I can't stop the regulators from doing what they're going to do. All I can say is I'm not going to comply.
Bruce didn't write an article like Eric did, but Bruce went and spoke in Chicago. Me and Will were just there about the regulation. If we want to pull up that video and watch Bruce's speech from Chicago, it's just like...
Yeah, he was adamant there. There was a lot of chatter in Chicago about regulation, and even some of the folks you might accuse of being like overly pro-regulation were really kind of watering down their talk because their displeasure with this NYDFS proposal. So they were watering things down enough to kind of say, well, you know, we still have to engage with these regulators because otherwise we're going to get this stuff we don't like rammed down our throats. But these are the folks all along who've been actively engaging the regulators and sort of arguably inviting the kinds of early steps that we're seeing here from Losky et al. So, you know, it's interesting. Nothing in there surprises me, and it's really, you know, like how far did you think they could go? There was the point made, I think it was Marco Santori or one of the attorneys, I believe, so maybe Patrick Merck or Marco Santori made the point that this is where they had to propose things so that they could, you know, they've set a very high bar for negotiating, so they would have a lot of room to come down. You know what I mean? Which again is not a happy strategy if you're the likes of us, you know, true believers in Bitcoin and that it is self-regulating and so on. So yeah, very interesting discussions going on both on the pro and against regulation sides. And yeah, it was really great to see someone with as big of a mouthpiece and as prominent as Bruce Fenton come out so loudly against it. My personal feeling is we all need to get as loud as we possibly can. So even the folks who are the pro-engagement type are advocating that we, you know, use this 45 days of public commentary period to get as loud as we possibly can, and professionally so. But you know, I don't think Eric Voorhees was unprofessional at all in what he wrote. Very passionate and maybe overly so in some aspects, but basically, you know, as long as you're professional, get loud and voice your displeasure and disagreements and logic behind these reasons for, you know, the problems with this proposal.
Yeah, and I got a little emotional. I was dropping F-bombs maybe a couple of times after you finished reading Eric's piece because I got so excited about it. But yeah, I mean, I guess I would try to back it up with different stuff. But you know, we got to be professional, but it's also, you know, important to get excited too. And I agree with Will a lot that it was good and exciting and professional in Chicago, and for Bruce to come out and just to, you know, deliver this haymaker to the thought that this could be something tenable was just like, man, it was just brilliant. It rustled my jimmies.
Do you want to see some of its? I mean, you've really built up this speech. I want to see some of this video. Do you mind if I play a clip?
Yeah, definitely, and especially kind of knowing who he is. I'm glad that you read the intro, because sometimes intros are a certain way or whatever. But for that to be his intro and then to see what he says is just really tickling.
Here we go.
Good to be here.
His audio is not that great.
I'm going to talk about a little bit about charity and philanthropy and emerging markets, and I'm going to also touch on regulation. I try and avoid that topic, but like the old movie says, it sucks me back in. We have this new news that I think cannot go unaddressed, so I will discuss the New York bit license. I have some strong opinions on it.
Nice, we got a boo from the audience. And feel free to jump in here, guys. It's okay to talk over him. People can watch this video on their own if they don't like our commentary.
That old movie was Godfather 3.
Right now. The world is changing very, very rapidly, and whenever we've had an amazing new technology, it has had all kinds of effects throughout the world. This happened with the printing press. When the printing press came along, it changed governments. It contributed to the Renaissance. It changed medicine. It changed discoveries. It changed the whole world because of the way that information was able to be shared. The internet did the same thing. The internet enables us to have so much better access to information, things that we can simply search for instantly.
Who does he think he's talking to, like talking about the internet? How old are these people?
There's a big, diverse crowd. I mean, it was the McCormick place. You can see the little seal on the front of his podium there. Mo Levin, who's a really nice guy, set up this conference at the Chicago McCormick Center. And if you've never been there, I wasn't ready. I walked in and I was like, holy wow, this place is like government subsidized or something. So it was a pretty nice audience there. He's talking to a lot of people.
Well, I'm sure everyone remembers Chicago is the home to the commodities trading type people. So, money, money, money.
It will affect the way that we do things. Not just Bitcoin the currency, but also the blockchain technology.
I'm going to skip ahead. I want to see when he gets into regulation. Blah, 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 intro, this is what Bitcoin is. Heard it a million times.
Pay attention to him because of the violence. because he's a violent person
Whoa.
who's threatening my friends.
Who is this?
He's saying, my friends at blockchain, my friends who are innovating, and my friends who want to create a new altcoin are breaking the law, even if they're not in his state. An unelected person threatening violence against people for doing math. And we as a community are supposed to praise him and say, let's reach out. Let's be friends.
Ooh, he is good.
I've been in this industry for 22 years. I've dealt with these regulators. They are not your friend. They are seeking to further their own power and their own influence. And there
were some of us that were really excited while he was saying this, but this took a lot of courage to deliver to an audience like this.
Oh my God, yeah. Were you like freaking out?
Oh yeah, I was like fanning my face like of tears and stuff like that. Like, oh my God, this is amazing! I can't believe I'm here. This is historic.
No idea that Charlie Shrem, who had met with him once a week for a year, no idea that the day that he was supposed to appear at his hearing that he was sponsoring.
Whoa, he met with Ben Lofsky once a week?
Does anyone believe that? Please
Yeah,
raise your hand if you believe that.
you know, one of the criticisms against Charlie Shrem was that he was too cooperative, even for his own good, and much of his cooperation was used against him in the indictment against him.
Yeah. Question: give you the records. Let the public see your email records and see if that's true. Will he take me up on that? No. We talk about ways to engage this person. I say we'd be better off not engaging. Again, not we as Americans, of course, because I have to comply with the laws. I don't want to lose my freedom. I'm talking about we humans, the people outside, who really don't care that much about an unelected bureaucrat from the state of New York. Deceit is when someone uses...
Wow, what a weird distinction that is. Not Americans, humans.
Is it corrupt when you have banks creating rules which help themselves? There's no doubt that that's the case, that it is what has happened. So why are we reaching out and working so hard to work with someone who has proven themselves to be deceitful? People say, oh, let's write a letter. Let's respond in 45 days. Let's not. The Bitcoin Association wrote a letter. We had it signed by 600 people. And we sent it to it. Did we receive any response? Not so much as an email from an intern. They don't really want to engage. The Reddit AMA, the CNBC appearances are theater. They're a theater designed to bring a politician more recognition so that he can run for higher office. Does anyone disagree with that? Does anyone really believe he's out to help the public?
Yeah, lots of people have suspected and spreading rumors that Lofsky's running for New York governor very soon, and this is kind of his like, his watershed effort here.
Engage. Why are we working so hard to engage somebody who does not have our best interests at heart? You see the comments on Reddit saying, well, I hope he considers this, and I hope he considers that. Here's a person who wrote a regulation that said Bitcoin businesses aren't allowed to own Bitcoin, but banks are. Do you really believe that that's a person who can be reasoned with? That is a corrupt, manipulative politician who is trying to further his own career at the expense of innovation, at the expense of jobs. So, I hope that there's people who say nah. I hope there's people who say those immortal words of Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, and I hope that people simply ignore it. And I think that the technology is going to outpace the tyrants, because right now anyone can take a phone and create a Bitcoin business. You don't need to go by their rules and their incorporation and their system and say, I'm going to follow your rules and go into your system and buy in. You just create a business on the cloud. Here it is. Create a new Bitcoin business that accepts and receives Bitcoin. Whenever you have a question about what legitimacy someone has, ask them where they get that legitimacy, why they have that authority. When they tell you to do something, say, or else what?
Ooh,
Or
so
else what?
dangerous.
In the case of these licenses, what they're saying is they will put people in jail for using math. Technology is illegal. They're essentially making technology illegal. These are the best and brightest minds, the people who backed companies like Facebook and created hundreds of thousands of jobs, believe that this is the future, that this will be the greatest driver. So the downside is pretty great, and I don't believe that there is public demand on the other side. And like I said, we've reached out, we've kind of played the game, and I've said, and that my colleagues in this industry are often saying, but when I see absolute, complete, total disregard, I see the community kind of surprised. It didn't surprise me at all. I've been doing this a long time. I've dealt with these people before. I think of the people in the Bitcoin community kind of like the old saying, as the people around a poker table who don't know who the sucker is. The regulators are not our friends. I don't believe that we should engage them. I don't believe that we should reach out to them anymore, because they have proven themselves to be absolutely and completely against any sort of reason. They are corrupted, and they are co-opted by special interests that are directly opposed to job creation, innovation, and all of the great things that can come from this. So I'll go ahead and open to questions now. Thank you.
Woo! Wow, I am blown away by that, and I'm so glad you brought that up, brought him up. That was just a perfect, what I think, conclusion to this topic of regulation. Of course, we're going to continue talking about the effects of this regulation, compliance, but I have to sign off because I'm about to go and host another show. You can check it out at radiofreedom.us. It's called The Angel Clark Show. And I have to get going. So it's been a lot of fun. I hope that Thomas will continue this and bring it to a full close, but I've got to head out. It's been fun, guys. Peace.
It's always a pleasure.
See you, Derek.
Bye, Derek.
Have a good rest of the day, man.
All right, so I'm back in charge now, and that means that the first thing we're going to do is talk about The Simpsons. Now,
Nintendo Chalmers, I was busted up earlier.
This is important. People need to know where this comes from, and why I think it's really apt. This is really a really smart thing that the internet's put together by a little bit of mispronunciation of his name, a little bit of changes. What we have here is Superintendent. I can't even say it right anymore. Superintendent Chalmers, right? Now Chalmers is in charge of Skinner, and Skinner is the principal of the school. So of course he's kind of a fool. He has some Vietnam flashbacks. He has some mother issues. And Chalmers always comes in to put Skinner in check. He's always like, it's your fault, Skinner. It's your fault that your school's out of control, that you have a hellion like Bart Simpson running around doing whatever he wants, completely unrestrained by his parents. It's your fault. So it's always Chalmers that comes in, and a lot of people started calling Superintendent Lawsky Supernintendo Lawsky. Now, this is because it also works because the Super Nintendo is completely outdated now. It's this old piece of technology. It's like Ralph here with his ColecoVision spelling the word cat. You know, old Gil's got to get some sales of the ColecoVision. You know, he's trying to sell
those
the old.
Colecos will rust up on you.
You gotta do rust proofing. Oh, you gotta have the rust proofing. Old Gil needs a sale. Oh, you don't want to know what old Gil will do for this sale.
Old Gil needs this.
He's the best. Oh, I miss. I'm blanking on his name now, but of course, Glenn Ross, the great performance by Jack Lemmon, I think it was, just fantastic. So he's this outdated Super Nintendo that's going to tell us what to do with our Bitcoins. And I'd always kind of laughed it off as a joke, but after hearing the Voorhees article, we really do have to take serious how ridiculous the restrictions that they want to put on Bitcoin are. Bitcoin exists without a ledger, without a database. It's not hard to get a Bitcoin account. You can just generate them. I have that paper wallet printer. It just generates accounts. It just makes them, right? You know, every time you go to bitaddress.org, you move your mouse around, it generates an account. It doesn't matter if you're 12, if you're 8, if you're 4. You generated the randomness. You made a Bitcoin account. They want to come in and interfere with that. They want to come in and put like signature cards on both ends of that, and they want to mess up that middle part with the randomness, maybe put a backdoor in. They're going to fail. They're going to fail laughably. They're going to fail loudly. and apparently they're going to take the entire state of New York down with them. This is a major tragedy for anyone that lives in the state of New York.
Oh, absolutely.
Bitcoin is about to pass you by.
Yeah,
so get ready. Go ahead.
Somebody earlier asking me on my Facebook, they were like, well, do you think that other states are going to see what they did and then copy it and follow suit? Now, I was like, I think a good example to use here would be a whole bunch of people standing around with firearms and somebody blows their foot off, and then everybody else looks at that and considers, would it be advantageous for me to blow my own foot off? And then they're all going to think about it.
We're talking states here, and if you look at the Civil War, if you look at any other group of states acting together, there'll be 2 or 3. 2 or 3 will jump in right behind New York. They'll say, New York's got the right idea. We're going to get gangrene too. We're going to get a massive infection.
It smells like almonds. I like almonds. They smell like cherries. Let's get some gangrene going on. It could be fun. Yeah, there's going to be a couple of states that follow suit that think that maybe that's going to be a good idea. And there's going to be, I mean, don't let that be your state, people. You don't want to be the second state. Go out there and let people know that you don't want to be the second state that thought that gangrene was a good idea, that you didn't want any part of that.
Well, maybe we should get more gangrene. Maybe New York only shot off one of their limbs. Maybe we could shoot off both of our legs at the same time. We need to think about this more creatively.
Maybe we could grow a lot of gangrene and like harvest it off and then maybe like sell it or repackage it. I want to run back to the Simpsons thing really quick because it was funny that you brought us there right away. And I was thinking about the bus driver, the school bus driver. What was his name again?
Otto
is at this carnival, and he's trying to get the lobster harmonica repeatedly. And he can't get the lobster harmonica, and he's used all of his money. And then eventually something really disastrous happens at the end of the episode, and it breaks down the lobster harmonica claw game machine. And Otto just runs in and takes it. He's like, all right. And then he runs out of the scene, and that's what it's going to be like as all this stuff comes to a head, and they're all like, oh, we got it all regulated. It's going to be a giant disaster that breaks the whole thing, and then we're all going to have our lobster claw harmonicas. We'll all be skipping off into the breeze.
I see this as being, a net win. I mean, on the one hand, you're going to have like this actual dialogue, potentially speaking, right? You might have a dialogue between the state and civilians, business people, that actually results in like an effective, maybe some of these draconian and ridiculous suggestions in this proposal get totally thrown out, and we end up with something that's much more workable, even if it's not something we desire. But that's the one hand. On the other hand, you have the scenario Tom outlined where, it falls on its face, it gets crushed under its own weight, it looks totally ridiculous in the process, and we have an opportunity to teach other people how ridiculous the state really is. I mean, basically these proposals are a claim of right by the state of New York to intervene in Bitcoin where there is no middleman at all, hard-coded, and become one in many, many areas, right? And
whenever they
really
want
doing?
to.
When they claim right, they're claiming ownership. And when they claim ownership, they're saying Bitcoin is ours, the state's, and not anyone else's. And what is Bitcoin? Tom was talking about these random number Bitcoin addresses that can be generated ad nauseum, at whim of anybody. Someone who's any or physically disabled can do this. Dogs can do this. Machines can do it on their own. And what do you have there? Can any entity actually own a random number? Ask yourselves these hard questions and really wake up to the ridiculousness that is these authorities.
Oh, absolutely. It's untenable all the way down to the axiomatic self-evident thing. It's like, okay, well, the government didn't own any of this stuff. They didn't make any of it. And now we have the Super Nintendo that's going to come in here and be like, at my discretion, we'll come in and audit your accounts. And an audit isn't anything that you want because even if they make a mistake, there's exploration. You have to, like, prove your innocence and stuff. And so when they're like, we're going to have Bitcoin, and then we're going to have Super Nintendo over here, and he's going to come in, and he's going to use his old system to come in and check out what you're doing. When is this going to happen? This is going to happen when somebody like you or I, or somebody that's smart or coming out of college is going to be like the next Nikola Tesla, or somebody that develops this great product in New York and has this really great service and starts making a lot of money with Bitcoin. Then, all of a sudden, Super Nintendo decides it's an audit and to come in and take a big tasty piece of this, or if it's something that doesn't, aid the interest of the state, like feeding homeless people and stuff like that, so that there's not enough leverage over a certain class of people to get whatever party elected, then they'll come in and be like, oh, well, you're feeding too many homeless people. We're going to audit your organization. Oh, look, now we've made up new laws and more rules. I mean, people think that, social liberties are really, really important, but financial liberties are important too, because that's sometimes where the rubber hits the road. If somebody takes away your ability to eat and make money and stuff like that, it's not good. And sometimes people think about financial liberties as just being for mega rich people and stuff like that, but they're gonna bend the law and do the stuff they want anyway, and they're not hurting from it. The people that don't have enough money to scrape by, and there's the inflation and all the stuff that makes it so that you can't have your money. I mean, financial freedoms are really important when you're really, really poor, and you need to maybe take all the money that you got from a transaction and not pay taxes on it, or pay temporary taxes, or go to a CPA. You need financial freedom to be able to live.
I think they just kicked the hornet's nest and they don't even realize it. I don't think the NYDFS or New York State in general, or even the United States federal government, has seen ever before the kind of influx of interest and letters and emails and activism, phone calls that they're going to see from the Bitcoin community globally. And certainly in North America and the US, where doing business with customers located inside New York is very important. So yeah, they had just kicked the hornet's nest. They're going to get, just inundated. And again, like Bruce said, they may ignore every single one of them. So I don't know. Bruce says don't engage them. I think certainly get loud. Being here on a show talking about it, we should just not talk about it. I don't agree with that. Let's talk about it. Let's be loud. Let's be smart. Let's be professional. And then same thing if you want to write in, or if you want to make blog posts, Reddit posts, emails. Get loud, be smart, be professional, and really, this is a time to make it so unpopular for any of these people to do this that it's just they just drop it.
I want to talk about what Germany did, because Germany hit back. I mean, this was kind of a punch to the face of the Bitcoin community. Maybe we can try to undo it or mitigate the damage. But Germany already punched back, because Germany recently got punched in the face by America really, really, really hard. And this happened in the way of that, basically where military bases are for America and stuff. Like, we take all the gold. If our stuff is where you are, we're going to get your gold. We're going to take all that. We're going to get that. And then we bring it back to Fort Knox and all that stuff. We're like, oh, we're gonna secure this here for you countries. Don't worry, you're going to get these here pieces of paper. It's going to be all fine. Then we give it to India and China, and it flows over there somehow. And we wonder why the hole with the bucket with a hole in it empties. But all that being the case, Germany, who had this, what I'm talking about happened to them with all their gold, came back to the Federal Reserve and everything recently and into America and said, okay, you're holding our stores of gold to some extent, and we would like to come and see them. We'd like to come and do an audit of our physical gold stores, because you've got these tickets for us, and we don't know that you have this gold, because it's, we don't know. We'd like to come and do an audit. And America's like, oh, I'll tell you what, son, we're going to let you into 1/100th of our facility, and you can look at maybe a couple bars of gold in there, and that's what you're going to get. And Germany's like, this is an outrage. This is an absolute outrage. And America's like, well, unless you're going to invade, what are you going to do about it? Have fun QQing over there. You go ahead and hold on to your certificates, where we didn't have in 20 years. Or maybe it was in 40. I don't remember the number, but it was really funny. So what Bitcoin did, not Bitcoin, what Germany did is recently, with all the stuff that came out with the bit license and stuff. So you have Dell, the good news that should have pushed the price up, and then you have the bad news of the bit license, and so the price of Bitcoin really didn't move. It should have gone up from Dell, it should have gone down, so it didn't really move. And so Germany, I think, is having a hard time with the Deutschmark. They're the biggest GDP producer in the Eurozone.
Derek has left us a photo of what the price of Bitcoin looked like, so we can cut to the photo. If you see here, the beer is the Bitcoin. So go ahead, Blake, keep going.
So what happened with this whole situation of the price of Bitcoin? It's neutral, and I think that the price of Bitcoin is important to Germany. They're the #1 producer of in the Eurozone. All the other non-unified monetary policy is sinking them. So Germany thought, what are we going to do? How are we going to fight back? How are we going to be smart about this? I know, let's give America a gift. We're going to give America a gift, and that gift is going to be 1,000 Bitcoin ATMs that we're going to put all over to help drink the milkshake of your finances and get it over into something that's going to help the Bitcoin holdings in Germany go up. So I thought that was such a clever / hilarious just knockout smash to the face of America right after look at this giant plug that we put in the dike here with the bit license. And Germany's like, oh yeah, that's a cute idea you did there. Remember how we're still mad at you? Here you go, here's a little gift, have this. This is going to be good for you. You like this very much. Oh yeah, you enjoy it. So I thought that was hilarious. That news came out last night, and when I read it, it was the kind of most significant story to me, because I feel like I could kind of put together these pieces of why this stuff was really happening and the kind of, you know, closet FU that Germany gave to America by doing that.
You just keep those references coming, Blake. I thought I was the only one that liked that movie. There Will Be Blood. That's what it was. I couldn't remember the title. I had to look it up because it was like, I always remember No Country for Old Men and No Blood for Oil. There Will Be Blood. So yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis, I drink your milkshake. I drink it up. It's like the most overacting I've ever seen. He like won an award. I was like, how?
Oh, no,
the movie was
so
bad,
good.
but
No, the truth. Like, I mean, it's really like it's the octopus come to life. Like Frank Norris's old book about how much should we charge? Whatever the system will bear. Like, however much they'll pay. Like medicine, oil, heating, coal, cooling, whatever it is, food, water, shelter, whatever.
Yeah, take skin off the back till the bones are revealed. As much skin as you can rip off.
And again, like, let's have a nice, consultation period with Losky. Let's all write in. Let's have all the smart people write in. Let's get Neil deGrasse Tyson. Let's get everybody on board. Big letters, big signatures, all the smart people, just like we do with global warming, right? We have all the smart people write all their letters. Then we have all the ignorant people that we elected vote, and then nothing happens, right? But again, with the Losky thing, nothing's going to happen, i.e., he's going to carry forward a whole bunch of these draconian regulations. We're basically going to have to write New York State off the map. So everyone needs to start working on whatever the IP ranges are for New York. We're going to have to start banning those. We're going to have to start blocking them from our information. We're going to have to cut them off from our internet, because the government basically must have the impossible. It must be impossible for you to donate to this address from New York State. If you're in New York State, I'm asking you not to donate to this address. And just
yeah, definitely. And if you're the second state to adopt the stuff of New York, this goes for you too, man. You're getting cut off from the internet too. Do you really want that? Do you really want your internet cut off? Because it's not really the whole internet. But if this is the way that the slippery slope is going, I would get the F out of New York in a big ol' hurry. I like my internet.
And again, we're only 45 days away from Derek J. running around the streets of New York, trading Bitcoin for dollars from his phone to your dollars until they arrest him. Like, he'll be filming it. He'll be exchanging Bitcoins on Wall Street, exchanging Bitcoins in front of the Statue of Liberty, Battery Park, exchanging Bitcoins in the Fashion District, meatpacking, whatever you got, New York. Wherever your Bitcoins are, they're being made illegal. Like, I guess, I mean, if we had the old days, you'd flood their offices with telegrams. I don't know who to tell you who to write. I don't know what to tell you to say, right, Blake? It's all network.
So no, they should totally do. They should do exactly with the GCHQ. With the go run into the Guardian newspaper with sledgehammers and smash up their servers. And any Bitcoin company that has any servers running whatsoever, just go and smash them up. Just go and just beat those pieces of hardware to death. And make a big show of it too. Bring in MSNBC and CNN and videotape the whole thing. Hilarious.
Maybe they could wear monkey suits like the beginning of 2001. They could use bones and pickaxes. Again, because that's what you're doing here in New York. This new technology has come along, and it says you don't have to be somebody to have a bank account. And you're saying you have to be somebody to have a bank account. That's fundamentally, like, we're at an impasse there. We're going to disagree. Like, you can create a Bitcoin address right now. You could be, like Will said, a dog. You could be a cat. You could be a computer, not even a computer program, like a Rube Goldberg, like a machine that's designed to move a mouse, like a record player controlling a mouse, just turning the thing around. We have no idea who you are when you create a Bitcoin address, and that's not going to change, no matter how much one state wants it to.
You should play that video so people know what we're talking about. I queued it up to the 1 minute video.
We can't play network. Oh, this thing. I don't know. We can't. We've already played a bunch of videos. We're going to totally lose our ad rights. The Google is going to say. The Google actually has this thing. It strikes you down in the middle of your live video. It's like,
oh man.
Oh yeah, it'll be like, you played some copyright during your live video. You should stop immediately, or we're going to cut you off.
Let's see if we can trigger it with this. Let's see if it'll trigger it.
I don't want.
We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radials, and I won't Don't say anything. Just leave us alone. Your life not good enough.
It's always the keyboards. At least keyboards are inexpensive. I've
Yeah.
smashed a few keyboards.
Oh, I've smashed a few. I've never smashed any playing games or anything, but when I read about the Shrem arrest and the Gox collapse, I broke 2 different ones at those 2 times. So.
Yeah, the little back things on keyboard are too easy to break. But yeah, Network is a movie that everyone should see. It explains how a television network works in the 70s, and it also explains how America worked and works in the 70s. It's written by a playwright, Patty Chayefsky, and it's just really strong. All the actors are strong, the cutting's strong, the filming's strong. It's just incredibly strong movie, doesn't seem aged at all, and actually really predicts the reality show world we live in today. The beautiful women news, as you guys were talking about earlier. And then there's segments on there, Sybil the Soothsayer, where she's a prediction. She's just a fortune teller. And she goes on the news to tell people their fortunes. And that's pretty much where we're going with a lot of the news. And they
we got the fortune teller Twitter feed, feeding at the bottom of the news anymore.
Exactly. Why not put your sign is in decline? I mean, the little things in the news have no meaning at all. It's complete nonsense all the time. They may as well go with astrology signs or any other kind of random system. Not to say anything's bad about astrology, but phrenology, the study of the shapes of the skull. It could be anything. There's all kinds of great things the media could still adopt. But what else is going on today? Did you guys talk about the Ethereum sale? Anything to add to that? I guess the real question is, has anyone here bought any Ethereum yet?
I was on the fence last night. I got a text from someone who told me right before it went live, and I was really tempted. But I really, I went through the process, and I saw there's a screen that comes up, and it says, the developers of this project will do everything in their power to produce a finished product, but that may not happen. I mean, that's a paraphrase version of it. But basically, I'm much more a fan of investing into products that actually have an MVP. I know we've seen some iterations of source clients from Ethereum, and I trust Vitalik and his vision. I really do. And I think Ethereum will be great, and I want to see it. But I'm going to wait to put any money towards it until I get to play with an MVP.
I would rather invest with Vitalik directly than with Ethereum, and I don't want to make too many waves, but I like Ethereum. The risk is always pump and dump, and I'm not saying that I think this is going to happen with them, but this is the material risk that you're dealing with. I mean, you can trust or not trust various people, but the risk of investing in something like this early is it going to be ghostware? Is it going to be vaporware? Will it not exist? Are the people that I'm giving it to going to dump all their capital that they've built up into this token system, and then everybody else that went in afterwards got burned by it? I don't know if this is going to happen or not. And the silver lining of that situation would be, well, but those people that invested early needed some money out of it when they finally got opened up. So those developers that had been working for free when there was interest collected that value out of it. So that would be the that would be the justification for that. But at the same time, if you really, really need money out of it and you're not investing in it to help with the situation of what they're trying to engender or whatever, you have to be aware of that risk. We need to be open with each other and tell each other what's really going on and what we're doing and where the risks lie. So I hope that everybody realizes that Ethereum's awesome and I love it, but if you need the money, you need to keep that money, and if you want to invest in something long term that you hope will change the world, that I hope you do that too and just understand what you're doing.
It does seem very much like it's a long-term investment with no options. It seems once you've put your money into the Ethereum tokens, your money is stuck there. Unlike a standard stock or even Bitcoin, where if you decide tomorrow you need to trade your Bitcoin in to pay your bills, you could do that. It doesn't seem like whatever you're being given, your Ethereum tokens or your temporary Ethereums or whatever it is, it's a very nebulous and confusing investment opportunity. We don't, like Blake said, I would rather invest in Vitalik or Ethereum the company. Maybe if we could own a piece of the software itself instead of owning Ether tokens, which I guess the idea is we're assuming these would be like Bitcoin tokens, and that if you could buy 2,000 Bitcoins right now for $650, wow, that would be awesome, right? I guess that's the idea we're going with. So in 5 years, these Ethereum tokens will be worth the price of Bitcoin. I'm not even sure about that. It's a very difficult risk for me to take or for me to.
Yeah, the one thought I have about it is like, you know, even in 2011, you could buy Bitcoins and spend them and use them. There was a network to run them on. You could actually use them. So even in the earliest days of Bitcoin, there was, you know, there were things to do.
The tokens are exchangeable. The tokens are liquid in that way. Yeah.
Right, but you can't actually use them to. I mean, there's no blockchain yet, so you can't really like run scripts with Ethereum yet.
So how can you interchange them if there's no blockchain and no miners?
Well, you would transfer the form of checking ownership or whatever they are, or the assignment to the allotment. There's got to be some system that keeps track of that, and if that's not shiftable from person to person, that would be an amazing technology that I wouldn't be aware of how you would even make that.
Yeah, but if all you got is Bitcoin Talk OTR or something like that to trade Ethereum, you don't have much. I want to wait until they have something. You know, I want to see some scripts run. I want to see Bruce Fenton's Bitcoin Association run on Ethereum, and then I'll be buying some Ether.
Sounds good.
I don't know if I'd want to wait for that long. I would hope that we could see baselines coming together with Ethereum, and then hope to fund that to get help for Bruce to be able to do that too. But I agree that we want to see it moving in that direction for sure with real traction.
Well, and full disclosure, I think MadeSafe is a great idea, but I didn't know how to invest in that either, or if it was even a good idea. And even now, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, and even MadeSafe, I'm not even sure that you can buy MadeSafe on other exchanges, even though I've seen some offered. I'm not sure what the people are trading. Are they trading kind of the receipts? I've got a receipt for some MadeSafe when the MadeSafe comes out. It's getting very complicated. It's very much like the old gold certificates. Like Blake was saying a minute ago, we have some gold for you in the vault, and here's your certificate, and here's your certificate, and here's your certificate, and how many certificates did we print? Oh, we don't even know. Like, who even cares? We just kept printing certificates.
Who cares? We can print certificates. We're printing 1 million of these mofos. We only got one bar of gold.
How many Ether are they selling today? How many Ether on sale? We have no idea. You just print some more. It's very, very hard to see exactly what they're selling here.
And like with MadeSafe, like I would invest in like Page or whatever, but I don't like I would want to know people personally that are working on the project, and then be like, okay, I would kind of want to know the project manager personally, and then
the main guy of MadeSafe seems very cool. I think David, maybe, I don't know, but anyway, he seems awesome, and I'd like to invest in him or his company, but I don't know about actually buying the tokens now. It's like I can hang out. I mean, I can I can buy it. I could encrypt my data now. I can't encrypt my data now. So what do I need a token for now? I need the token when I encrypt my. I guess. I mean, it really comes back to this kind of the artist coin idea, like Tatiana coin or Let's Talk Bitcoin coin, where you're buying faith in the artist. If I could buy REM coin when I was first a fan of them, when they were a very small band, maybe I'd hold my REM coin and only buy albums with it, and I'd never have to buy albums for the rest of my life. But again, that doesn't really make sense from the artist point either. You buy a little bit of artist coin in the beginning, and then you never give them any money again, ever. And your early adopters are rewarded so significantly, and your other people that come along later don't get any reward. It's a very
the artist coin is a unique concept, because what we have is we have this very left brain approach to what's going on over here about how we can quantify different things, how we can use math-based security and mathematics to create value and do all that stuff. Then you have the right brain perspective, which is, well, what really is value? Value is the sovereign spark and motivation and desire and taste and of the individual, and then music is kind of a channeling of that through. So it's this kind of merging into the systems merge completely yet in ways that totally make sense. I don't know, but I think it's an extremely exciting concept to try to bring the yin and the yang into Bitcoin and to really decentralize the shit out of everything. That's a really exciting idea. I don't know if that's...
Well, and if you guys really want to get into it, Chris has been talking about it, and it's starting to become real. This kind of global reputation system where hoarding your money, saving your money, that was the old system. The new system is Bitcoin. We can kind of look at your wallet, see how much money you have generally. So you should be donating that money. That money should be fluid in a system where that money is working towards goals that you support. So if people start acting openly and publicly about what their ideas are, what they want to do to accomplish those ideas, and how they're going to do it, and then put a crowdfunding element to that, that I have this reputation, I have these clearly stated goals, I have this past track record, and I need this funding, that the funding will arrive, and that all of these projects are going to start to be funded through the internet.
I think at the same time, though, we have to kind of re-examine our definition of saving, because historically we had this super pervasive, terrible consequence of saving, in that there was less for everybody else. But in the zero-sum game of Bitcoin, where there's a limited supply and it's infinitely divisible, hoarding and saving Bitcoin actually helps everybody else. It is actually an anti-fragile system wherein it, like, if everybody's suffering and they don't have very many Bitcoin and stuff, and it's like, oh, I don't have enough Bitcoin for food, and some assmonger comes in and buys a whole horse ton of Bitcoin and holds on to it, and they're like, I'm never, ever going to use it, and I'm just going to burn all this over there. Everybody else's value goes up, and then they can all go get sandwiches and stuff like that, and it actually helps everybody. It's kind of like a bizarre, like, it's you know, it's like Nelson coming up. It helps them
temporarily until the large player decides to sell, or until the large player sells slowly over time, making
but now we have descriptive arbitrage that can actually balance these things out, so that when people try to do that, it doesn't have the effect.
Well, I mean, the real issue is that savings leads to inheritance, and inheritance leads to the system we have now, where
inheritance leads to clarity and autonomy and purpose, and people that don't have to toil in the dirt for their money. Inheritance is, you know, bad in situations where there's horse tons of money and people doing really pervasively negative things and hurting people, but really, by and large, inheritance is a good thing that allows your kids to be able to do what they really want to do, and hopefully not become really bad, lazy people with it, but, you know, invest in different things and have more ammunition for human action when they're born. I mean,
put the line where the estate tax line is at $5 million. Anything under $5 million, I don't care about. Anything over $5 million, I'm not sure what they're inheriting, other than a little kingdom. And I'm not.
What about children with a disability in an inflationary environment? I don't know if we have the right to make decisions about whether people can inherit and what they can't.
Personal examples, not statistically relevant. Moving on.
Statistically relevant to me.
yeah, that's why it's a personal example. It seems very relevant, but statistically, it doesn't matter.
Statistically, there's not tons of people inheriting lots of money and something that's causing a big amount of damage. There's a very small amount of people inheriting a very large amount of money, and they're the outlier.
Yeah, it's very clear. Well, we can set the line as high as you want. There's very clearly 3 or 4 groups that are inheriting a large amount of money, and
I see what you're saying now. I see what you're saying now. We could set the line as high as you want, as far as there's got to be some kind of scrape off, so you can't buy a country and rape
100 million, 500 million. I mean, it's when we get up to the top 5, those are the. If I could just have the top 5 or the top 10.
And I don't disagree with your concept, what you're saying. I don't disagree with that at all. It's like nobody needs that much money, but then the enforcement of it and the collective and having to come in and to do that, I mean, maybe if we could put that in a protocol and we all agreed on it, that'd be good. But if somebody didn't agree, should we go take their stuff? But it's like, I don't know. It seems like really muddy water. I'm anxious talking about it.
The existing system shows you if you don't take their power, they'll use their power against you. They'll say nice things for 20, 30 years, then they'll use their power against you. They'll set up organizations in the 30s, and then 100 years later, they'll use their power against you. Unchecked power is...
But like who? Like, what are the examples of this? Like De Beers? I know De Beers has done some bad stuff. I mean, do you mean like that kind of thing?
The artificial diamond market? You want to start there? No, I mean, I'm talking just... like a lot of the ideas that people have with like environmentalism may be towards reducing the population, which may be towards a completely different goal than the prima facie environmentalist claim.
I have huge problems with the environmentalist movement because what they do is they enact regulation which they think is going to help and which is meant to help, and then right before it gets pushed through, they do things like exempt large oil and gas companies from the Clean Air and Water Act. And it's like, oh no, this is just
that's where the regulation starts, is with the oil and gas companies. If you go back to history, they were the first vertically integrated corporations. They controlled every step of the supply chain, and they were able to knock their competitors out of business. And eventually they actually developed resources to the point where they were able to buy the government to shape the regulations to knock their future customers out of business, to restrict the marketplace. And basically we've had just an expansion of that into everything. And you can
exactly, because cartels or businesses that become too big become a government in and of themselves. And what's my definition there? Well, it's, you know, when you have a monopoly on the use of force because you have enough money to pay it off and or to pay enough people to enforce that use of force, it becomes a monopoly on violence, and they become the same thing as the state. And it's all the collectivism, like the individualism versus collectivism. It's the individualism is, voluntary collaboration is everything that's important in life, and it's symbiosis and how we all love each other and reproduce. Then you have collectivism, which is like the human centipede. It's forced collaboration. It's like, well, nobody wants to do that. It's like, well, my science experiment likes when you are sealed to the other person's anus. And it's like, well, you're insane, and we don't want that. We don't want collectivism.
Well, and sometimes collectivism builds nice things like big libraries or big pyramids or data networks. Yeah, there's a variety of things where we've worked together, and it's about
I'm all in favor of voluntary collectivist organizations. So, as long as you can opt in and out, I'm all in favor of that. And there's plenty of great examples of that.
Transcends the definition of collectivism then. And it really does. We have to keep in mind that when we say that, okay, well, voluntary individualism and collaboration is all good, but sometimes we need collectivism. But that transcends the definition of voluntary. We all have to be very, very, very careful that we know that when we talk about collectivism, some plurality or majority or person or king or regis or whatever you want to call it, some substrate is going to be able to force various people into doing certain things. And individualism is all about voluntary collaboration, sans the use of violation of negative rights. And then you have negative and positive rights in the real information science fractal perspective of, this really is the absolute truth and the difference between right and wrong, and we're getting to the point where we can really figure this stuff out.
And it all goes back to goals. If you remember, the original corporations were chartered by the state to accomplish certain things. The Dutch East India Company was designed to explore the oceans, to establish a trade route, and to bring goods back that the state needed. This was the state could control the future of the corporation. Now we've completely gone the other way. The cat's out of the box, Pandora's gone, whatever you want to say, and the corporations are running amok. But if we went back to the idea, what is this corporation supposed to do other than profit? And profit has become the only things these corporations are supposed to do.
They're just trying to get all these gold stars and all these gold stars, and it's like, well, what did you get the gold star for doing? We've lost track. We've tried to keep track and quantize things so much that we don't even remember what we were supposed to be doing here.
It's like we went on a mission to the moon, and halfway there they decided that there is no moon, but we're still going on a mission, and nobody knows what the mission's for. And
I think it's also a symptom of all these closed systems that have been built, and it seems like closed systems are what produce monopolies of all kinds of all kinds. And when you have more advantages or more incentives, better incentives aligned to design these closed systems where everything is a vetting process and everything's a good old boys club, and you have to be allowed in all the time and allowed to leave all the time, then you get these byproducts, these really parasitic, these systems crush under their own weight over time, and this is what we see, a lot of suffering through that process. So this is why the open source culture, if you will, is really exciting, because you get to see how scarcity is kind of a myth created by these beings, these entities that want these closed systems. And there's actually abundance. You can actually create win-win and value adds along the way. You can combine resources to make more abundance instead of taking from one area to increase quantity in another area. And I try to use those general terms because this can apply whether in economies and just in all kinds of areas. So this is what you get with closed systems. They crush under their own weight. Governments are
it
closed
even applies
systems.
all the way to the scarcity of thought. You can only have so many thoughts per day. I mean, this gets really macro. I liked how you said that you use a generality not because of unsureness, but because the specificity is inappropriate. It applies to all walks and substrates of life. I don't mean to interrupt you, really.
Yeah, no, it's this is what we're gonna get if we keep thinking that scarcity isn't something that's made up by monopolies to preserve their monopolies. We can make life more wonderful for each other, and nobody has to sacrifice or compromise. We can voluntarily collaborate and cooperate, and actually everyone is better off.
And it's actually easier, a lot easier. It's way easier to live like that than the way that we're living now.
I agree, Will, that open source is the key to this, and we kind of forget as computer geeks, we kind of take open source for granted. We don't think about Linux, we don't think about copyleft, we don't think about these ideas. They've just become an ingrained part of our lives, but this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the state of New York. Satoshi Nakamoto, the group, the team, the person, whoever they are, they really threw a monkey wrench in here because the state doesn't know how to regulate this because it's not a corporation. it doesn't fit by their normal rules. Normally, they would just go to Bill Gates, the Bill Gates of Bitcoin, and they would say, we don't like your product, we want to change it. Like they went to the CEO of Napster, and they told him to turn his servers off, and they shut down his centralized location, and they, crushed him. And eventually, Napster came out differently, and it was a huge opportunity missed. They're doing that same thing now. The state of New York has decided that they're going to Bitcoin the corporation, and they tried to go to their centralized location, and they couldn't find it. And they tried to find their CEO, but they couldn't find him. And they tried to get their patents and all their documents that they filed to protect their intellectual property, because obviously Bitcoin's really valuable. The software would want to be, protected, right? Your corporation, you own the Bitcoin, right? So they went to the patent office and they said, hey, you got those patents on the Bitcoin? No one had them. This whole time, who is New York even petitioning to? Who are they even talking to?
It makes me think that this whole thing that Time Magazine did, going after, trying to find, they obviously funded Leah Goodman to go find this character for some purpose. The purpose wasn't for a story, I don't think, anymore. I honestly think whether this man, who was largely incapable of defending himself if he was falsely accused of being this person, could have been used either way as a fall guy to kind of figuratively decapitate Bitcoin. And so what you have here is like a kind of luckily the community around Bitcoin was so virulent, that it can come to this man's aid and actually expose the falsehood of the effort to define Dori Nakamoto as Satoshi Nakamoto. Because it would have been easy in the past, before Bitcoin, before much open source culture has been permeating, to use a massive PR campaign to defame Bitcoin. This is the one thing I've been afraid of up until about a year ago. Since I've been involved in Bitcoin, like the only thing that could kill Bitcoin, in my opinion, in late 2012 when I was looking closely at it, was a massive PR campaign, the likes of which we're used to seeing. If you maybe came from the libertarian camp and you saw what was done to Ron Paul in 2007 and 2011, same type of thing. This is how you kill a mass contagious movement that's truly grassroots, is with a really effective, wide-sweeping PR campaign. This wasn't possible on Bitcoin as of about early to mid 2013, because it had already kind of reached critical mass as a contagion in the mind of this community. So that's why it's been so robust and resistant to all these attacks. I mean, attack after attack after attack for 2 straight years, and it just continues to steamroll.
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is both anti-fragile in that it can adapt and defend itself and work and change because of the way that it's set up and the way that the various involved constituencies can come together and make any changes that need to be made to defend itself. But it's got the anti-fragility and the robustness in addition to an incentive system that we haven't seen in software before. Like we have freeware and demo stuff and various incentive systems trying to get people to use game theory to play, what we call games or whatever, to try to get software to reach ubiquity. But Bitcoin is like Agent Smith coming out of the matrix into somebody's mind to try to come and get Neo, and that's what it did to me and to you guys too. The code that Satoshi wrote works on the math and on the computers, and then also on human biology and sociology, and is motivating us all to talk about it continually and to go out and get other people to know about it. So the PR campaign kryptonite that Will was talking about that happened to Ron Paul in such a horrifying fashion is something that is ineffective against Bitcoin. And as the PR campaign started to tease and tickle on the anti-fragile nature of Bitcoin, even in our own minds as we've picked it up, it started to become anti-fragile and robust and actually have the opposite effect. Their smearing made it so that people would post on articles and forums letting people know the truth, and it's, I think, really fascinating to really think about that and to really understand how absolutely amazing that is.
I think it's very clear that in the state of New York, Satoshi Nakamoto is a wanted criminal. So, good job, New York.
As we all are, with all their rules and regulations that you couldn't possibly follow. And I think it's important for us to realize that we're at the high tide of government and that there's no way for us to be secure against selective enforcement. Selective enforcement is tyranny. We live in very dangerous times.
Well, and they're keeping all of your data. They're openly saying, we want to keep all of your data in case you break a future law. so that we can go back through your data. They've been very clear. Like, that's the, again, it comes back to this idea. Law enforcement used to be easy. If you were a law enforcement officer and you wanted to freeze someone's bank account, you're not going to like get a hose and like freeze it down like with ice. You're just going to call up the bank and ask them to freeze it, right? That was the old system, the old way. You want to track the bad guy, you go to his club where he hangs out, you go to his one bar, centralized locations. All the bad guys hang out at the bad guy bar. You go there, you pick them up, you take them to the station. They don't have any rights. You can beat a confession out of them. Law enforcement used to be easier. It used to be a simple and easy, maybe even a fun job if you have the right kind of personality. That's not going to be true anymore. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard to track all this computer shit, computer money now. You're going to need hacker kids. You're going to need all kinds of stuff, law enforcement. It's going to be really hard for you, and it's never going to go back to the way you want it to be. And that's
yeah, they're never going to be able to recruit enough talent because all the talent's going to want to work on the innovating things, which will be de facto illegal if the NYDFS has its way. So, you know, it's just a funny paradox they're putting themselves in. I really thought this would happen, and I also kind of figured, well, I could be wrong. Maybe, you know, I'm a little naive in thinking that the government is just going to crap its own bed and spit up on itself and just look foolish. But it really does look this way, like that they're actually willing to embarrass themselves and lose all credibility. And that's kind of an exciting thought for those of us who think that they need to go the way of the dodo bird. You know, Bitcoin regulates itself. If you think money laundering is anything more than a thought crime, then, you know, maybe all the regulations that are needed, in your opinion, will just be good old-fashioned detective work using computer hardware, you know, interconnectivity, you know, the tools we have, our modern-day consumer electronics tools to investigate these so-called, you know, money laundering thought criminals. So
yeah,
that's all you need. You don't need extra regulations to do that the way it's currently constructed.
Once they get a lead, Bitcoin might be good for them. It might be easier to transact and to find these bad people, to stop these money launderers. But the old ideas, the old money laundering laws, you're not going to be able to move them over to the new money. This is just like the MP3 and the CD. We don't need any panel trucks to ship MP3s. The panel truck drivers who used to ship pallets of CDs to record stores, they're out of business. It's over.
Yeah, and government is a consensus system. It's governance of self-representation, or it's supposed to be. So the internet solves that problem. The internet can solve all the problems that the government ever was trying to say, yeah, we're going to have a physical meeting and stuff like. No, the internet totally made the government like the most like useless thing ever. And Bitcoin's doing the same thing for the role of government to have value and storage and keep things stable and regular and stuff. So there's the one side of government that's been replaced by information and communication, friction reduction, and now with Bitcoin, risk and financial management, friction reduction are both coming to zero.
Yeah, Blake, that's really interesting. You know, the last semblance of a quality argument that any, for lack of a better term, pro-government or statist folks might have is that government provides physical security, much needed physical security for, you know, the borders, or for, you know, the money in the vaults, or, you know, the GDP, the treasury, whatever it may be. That is their last, like, feebly standing decent argument. And Bitcoin, you know, totally displaces it. It doesn't ruin it. It displaces it. There's no need. It's rendered obsolete. So, like, even the role to provide physical security, which is kind of the last legitimate cause for government, for those who would support the concept, is rendered inert and obsolete. It's really exciting times we live in.
You don't need a vault anymore to secure Bitcoins. You don't even need to be over 18. Like Will was saying, we have a way to pay essentially any new programmer that's coming up. Any new programmer that's looking to work on the internet is going to work for Bitcoins before they work for the government. And once they start working for Bitcoins, I imagine if they're a smart programmer, like we all think ourselves are pretty clever, they're going to keep working for Bitcoins. They're going to keep asking and recommending and saying they'll take clients that work for Bitcoins. If you look at Ethereum today, that's raised almost $3.5 million, their leader, I believe, is a 19-year-old kid. and I'll bet he started out working for Bitcoins, and I think he likes it. He'll keep working for Bitcoins. He raised 4,000 of them today. It's been amazing. So.
Yeah, you know, there's a bunch of students who are making money with Bitcoins who are 19 years old, 18 years old. I've met them, you know, in Milwaukee doing the Milwaukee meetup. They work for a company in Berlin. They accept Bitcoins for their wages, and they go to school full time. And, you know, they're working their way up the ladder within these companies that they're working in. They already have jobs, and maybe for whatever reason they see value in continuing school. Vitalik did not see value in continuing school, dropped out, you know, after being there a short time, and went and traveled the world writing about Bitcoin. Found, you know, like self-educated, obviously, and then writes. Perhaps we will see if it's more than vaporware very soon. I hope, but writes perhaps the most important innovation since Bitcoin. You know, so it's exciting stuff. I mean, this is there. Like you said, Tom. Any kid who wants to work can now circumvent child labor laws and work. And they don't need their parents' permission or the government's permission or even any company's permission. They can start working on the Bitcoin source code and get paid through crowdfunding for quality work that they're doing, and they can be 15 years old.
And it goes back to reputation. If the child forms a strong reputation, if he takes reasonable contracts and he delivers on them, he'll be fine, and he'll have a high reputation, and he'll go through the system. Similarly, all the systems where a child could be abused or mistreated, he doesn't have to travel to a strange location. He just stays there on his computer. If he can't fulfill the contract, he could refund the money. Or if the contract's impossible, he could refuse to take the contract. It's all very voluntary, I suppose what you guys would say, voluntary.
Or he can set up a company, take a bunch of contracts, and outsource all the labor to Bangalore or other places in the third world, create jobs in the third world, and just function as project management and pay all these people through Bitcoin, through the contracts that he's skilled in raking in. And then there you go. He has a firm and he starts a business, and it's all in the cloud.
And it's based upon his superior communication skills that would allow him to do that. It's about finding out where your strengths are and focusing on your strengths. And it's even possible that everyone in that chain might benefit. The people in Bangalore need jobs. The people with contracts need them fulfilled. Again, essentially, he's being useful. The most valuable thing you can be is useful on a good project, a proper project. So. All right, so let's move on to one more story, and then we'll probably
say, and it's direct value. It's not just like token systems and stuff like that. Token systems that we're inventing now are bringing value back to the more direct sense, and not with the golden stars and what does this mean, or is this by some kind of violent decree? It's bringing back direct value, and by just like, I don't know, the miracle of what is, reputation and value are connected in such a way that it's bringing reputation back with it. And the reputation of people that are 15 or whatever age they are, we're going to be like, arbitrarily, you can't work because you have to be educated. It's like, well, education is something that should be happening all the time, and work and education it should be more combined than we think that they are, and you should do what you want to with your soul and sovereign judgment and your spark. So all this stuff starts to spiral together in this positive buildup of what's good about mankind, and getting us away from the pervasive negative spiral of debt and violence and subjugation and further rules and regulations. I mean, there's the ancient Roman maxim of, you know, the more laws, regulations, and jurisdictions and subdivisions a government has, the more corrupt it is. I mean, we've known that for a long time, and I don't know why that, you know, Roman axiom is not more known today. But we are, as information scientists, bringing the left brain millimetrical proof that these systems work, and that's what Bitcoin is, and it's very exciting.
Very good. Looks like we're going to move on to, am I muted? No. We're going to talk about everyone's favorite topic, and what show would be complete without talking about Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox creditors meeting delivers few answers and one apology. Of course, the apology was from Mark Karpelès, who is still claiming that the Bitcoins were hacked. He's still saying that they were quote-unquote stolen, to which the Bitcoin network is saying, give us the transaction number so we can look it up, so we can start tracking these Bitcoins, and to which he's saying nothing. So not a lot of answers from the Mt. Gox meeting. They have some Bitcoins. They want the crowd wants the Bitcoins to be distributed in Bitcoin and to keep that way, so they'll maintain their value. This is when they had applause. It sounds like the Englishman or the Scottish person who traveled to Japan was there, Colin Burgess, who famously stood in the snow outside Gox's office, and he was very disappointed. And another person from Europe was there, and he had lost a considerable amount of money. He said it's not something you could earn back to the amount of money that he lost. So it really does come home when you remember how much people have lost in this system. He says it was a lot, not something you can just earn back.
And the deflationary nature of how Bitcoin is produced is like you can't make it back, and even if you could and then measure like your losses in US dollars, I mean, that's not a real
and these are also, value. A lot of these people, these are years of trading profits, years of holding profits. They've had a multi-year relationship with Mt. Gox that's been suddenly completely broken. So it is a big shock for them. And it just wasn't a safe place to hold your Bitcoins. I know I've been ramping on this lately, but you need to get your Bitcoins into paper wallets. You need to get your Bitcoins into offline, securely printed paper wallets. I know it's difficult. You're going to have to follow some instructions. Maybe watch one of my videos recently. I did some examples. Maybe buy a paper wallet printer. If you have more than, say, $500 worth of Bitcoin, you should buy a paper wallet printer for only a few $100s. And it's just really simple. You push a button.
And in Chicago, Will and I were hanging out with Dimitri of Mycelium. He's just like the nicest guy ever. He's just a genius, And they have we watched the video the other day, right, with the old lady and the wings and stuff. And that's another good solution too. And it was good to go and meet Dimitri and talk to him and stuff, because then you can really, there's an element of knowing people that's really invaluable. Like people are like, why do you go to Bitcoin conferences so much? What are you doing? Like some of them you're speaking at, and some of them you're not. It's like, well, we have to go out and know various members of the community. Like me meeting to and talking to Bruce Fenton for a long time. Like I had seen him on Facebook and stuff, and with his Marauds video, which is really funny. And so I knew he was a pretty good guy. But when you talk to people and you can look them in the eye and get a feel for them, it's reputation's coming back, and I think that it's a really, really, really exciting thing.
I think I might have met that guy at DC. He was there at they had a Mycelium booth. He said his Alice in Wonderland video, he thought that I'd beaten them in the contest, but we were actually both losers, so very disappointing. But they do have a very nice thing that is a little USB stick that's going to go into a printer. I'm a little concerned. My printer doesn't have a USB stick slot, so that's not going to work for me. I don't know if it's possible. I'd kind of hope maybe if it was the large USB that goes on the back, that might have worked better. Also, printers that have that USB stick probably have memory and Wi-Fi, so they could have a virus in there as well. That's a little second level thinking, but every printer now is suspect. Every computer is suspect. In the old days, you'd say, well, it's not worth installing a keylogger on that computer because that person doesn't do anything of value, right? Like I can't steal your spreadsheets and make a profit with them unless there's a certain kind of spreadsheet, right? Generally, your work product is not that good. But now your computer could either be producing Bitcoins or you could be getting them from the exchange. And now your computer is worth money. So now your computer is worth hacking. It didn't used to be, and now it is. So we're going over that line.
Well, and people need to realize that physical access, like information technology and math-based security, like 101, the biggest risk to any system is physical access. And when you have something like Wi-Fi on your printer, that's a giant bubble of ethereal physical access that goes out and people can come and get it. So I know what you're saying about the extra risk that's involved that you'd have to be aware of to use the Mycelium thing, and that's why we were kind of talking to Derek before about how you have to really know the avenues of risk to be able to help mitigate this stuff. But at the same time, tools like this help you to jump and conquer a whole bunch of stuff before you have to go and worry about the specifics of, is there Wi-Fi on my printer? Do I have to destroy the memory now because I've made so many wallets with this stuff, and go and do that? But if you know that that's the risk, then you can really, really compartmentalize and help to secure it. But you're right, the more feature sets of hardware and software that we have, the more avenues of risk that we have. And the printers that have new stuff, the MFPs with Wi-Fi and stuff, that is a real avenue of risk. There's memory in those units that could be purged out or potentially even stored more permanently, and then
and remember that the big hacking money is being in the first to hack it and being the one that, oh, I didn't think you could hack that. They hacked it. Like, those are the ones that run away with your money. Those are the ones that get away with it. So yeah, watch out for that. But to answer a question from the chat, I did make 2 videos about how to make secure Bitcoin paper wallets by booting into Tor, or not Tor, booting into Tails Linux. I talk about how to burn a Tails Linux DVD, how to boot to it, how to download the bit address client, and then I did another video on a PC. So if you have a PC and you think it's that much different than a Mac, it really isn't. But did pretty much the same instructions there, how to boot into Tails Linux. I was able to use the same Tails DVD to boot on the Mac and on the PC. So how's that for the future? And you can check these out, how to make secure paper Bitcoin wallets. Just Google that, or they're on the Mad Bitcoins channel on YouTube. So check that out.
Yeah, that's a really, I think your videos are the best that I've seen, and I've looked online for any good ones out there. There are some good ones, but they're always missing 1 or 2 steps, 1 or 2 crucial steps, and it's the kind of frustrating thing for like a new user. If you're putting yourself in the mindset or the shoes of a new user or an average computer user, average internet user, and you get to a step where you're like, step 4, do this, this, and this, and the user looks at their screen and they're like, wait a second, I just finished step 3, and what I'm looking at is nothing what was just described in step 4, and then they're stuck. So there are some really good videos out there, but yours are the best in my opinion. They really get from start to finish, and I think it's a huge service.
They are long videos. Like, I don't want to the first one's 25 minutes, but I do go through all the steps. I include some waiting time. I think a lot of this is waiting time. You need to be way more patient with your computer if you're going to use Linux. You have to wait for some things to appear on the screen. If it says it's scrolling, it's thinking. It's not frozen. So you have to wait.
Yeah, you have the element of cohesivity in your videos, wherein you can see the process live and uncut, and then people are like, well, you should trim it down. I was like, well, if we trim it down to something that's easier to digest, there's going to be giant sacrifices of understanding. And so having the 25-minute video, if you want to watch it at 1.25 or 1.5 or 2.0, so it cuts it down in half, that's fine, but it's going to be, talking maybe like Alvin and the Chipmunks, but you can, maybe get through the stuff that's harder to sit through.
And this is the future. You can pause it. You can do your steps. You can go look it up. You can have a different person's instructions, have their instructions, have my video, have your steps, carry it through. Use a separate computer. This way, if you have to reboot, you can keep watching the instructions maybe on your iPad or iPhone. You can keep up your list on your iPhone. You can have the video on your iPad, and you can reboot your computer. You have to think outside the box, but you need to stay connected to your technical information. I'll print out instruction sheets on how to do something if I have to reboot, because you want to keep the instructions with you. You think you memorized it all, but sometimes it's not all there, so you want to do that. So, there we go. Blake's got a phone. Text from Will. Very good. So let's see. We got a couple of question and answers. People that wanted us to announce that Tim Draper, who bought the 30,000 Silk Road Bitcoins, will be on the Stephen Colbert Show tonight. So feel free to watch, and we certainly will watch. We're asked the question by Bitcoin Art Gallery. It's interesting. I mean, I guess Colbert obviously knows about Bitcoin. This is an incredibly large purchase that Mr. Draper's meant, so there's no way that Colbert will not mention the Bitcoins. He'll have to ask him about it at least. So look forward to that.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. That's a big deal. Stephen Colbert is a satirical genius in ways that I can't even articulate. I mean, people like, do you agree with him on everything? It's like, well, it's all satire, so I'm not sure on what you would be thinking was or was not satirical when you asked me if I agree. But he has a mental facility for comedy and for irony and for puns that I can't even fully comprehend, so I'm really excited for them to talk to each other. Hopefully it's really fun.
The best thing about Colbert is when you watch him work, you can see him think. It's just like Johnny Carson, where he's thinking of the line, he's got the line, he's ready, he waits for just the perfect point, puts the line in there, and it's not all scripted. Like he's smart enough. He writes the scripts with the crew, you know, and he's coming up with these lines in real time sometimes, and those are the funniest ones. Those are the best ones.
And I don't want to criticize anybody, but like when John Oliver or some of the other people do some of the stuff, I mean, they get most of it right, but none of them have that, you know, kind of perfect spark and balance. I mean, Colbert's like a mutant in the best possible sense of the term.
Yeah, I got to think that the whole reason he's having him on is to talk about Bitcoin. I mean, what else besides that has made the news with regard to Tim Draper in the last, you know, month or two that would be relevant? It's got to be this. So hopefully the majority, if not the whole discussion, is around Bitcoin, and I'm sure we're gonna get sent up pretty hard by Colbert, but it'll be all in good fun. And I think Colbert, you know, he's been chatting about Bitcoin with some of his guests recently. And it's on his radar. I think, you know, it's all in good fun, and he must know what's going on. And he's always been a trendsetter, so I'm sure he's on top of things.
And remember, he's going to have an hour-long show soon. He's moving over to take over the David Letterman show. So fingers crossed, there's a very good chance that one of his new bits will associate Bitcoin. Maybe he can give Bitcoin to his audience, have a contest, a giveaway, some kind of just, you know, throw it out there, Colbert. You know, put some jokes in the Bitcoin. I'd love to see that. So, we've got another question here. Tony P in Scotland says, an American telling someone in Scotland that I have to give my ID. Good luck getting anything more than a picture of my backside, Losky. So he's going to be faxing in some identification documents from Scotland, and that is
some Scotsman's warty butt. Oh my God!
That's going to be a very tough day for the Losky fax machine. He's going to be in a lot of trouble that day. But that is part of the part of this Bitcoin madness, is that they wanted this interconnected world system, and they've been working for a long time to build it, and they're still working on it. There's a lot of ins and outs and what have yous. But Bitcoin is a totally interconnected world system. You can donate Bitcoin, you can work for Bitcoin, you can send Bitcoin anywhere in the world. And there's this American exceptionalism that we're seeing on display now with like the Silk Road money. They just took all that money that was the operating capital of that business. Some of the countries where that money came from, it might, I'm not saying, I don't for sure, but it might have been legal to operate in that kind of business. That money kind of should have been returned to those people. I don't know that the government had the right to take that and sell that off to Mr. Draper.
Well, the government maintains that, well, we had a period wherein you could have come to claim that stuff, and then we would have investigated you for criminal activity. So nobody came to claim it.
I remember that.
In the Douglas Adams book, where like, we told you we were going to destroy your planet on this other planet.
Come on, you Earthling. You're so lazy. You haven't been to your local planning department. Come on, it's only three light years away.
We've become a Douglas Adams book. I mean, it's really that ridiculous, and I think that we should all, chortle in the way that we should. It's such ridiculousness. It's insane.
Well, and I look forward to next month when the engineers at Coinbase and the engineers at blockchain have to change their application so it blocks all the IP addresses of New York users, and there's going to be all this special code that's going to be written like if state equals New York, parentheses, all this stuff. Like, it's madness. Like, New York, what are you doing to yourself? Like, you're letting this one guy who works for business, who wants to work with business, take away the rights of the people of New York to use Bitcoin and other future digital currencies. Like,
it makes all the pandering, like during the hearings back last year, and even in any interview since then, or even in the statements within the proposal, all the pandering to trying to, have sensible regulation, but still allow for not choke off innovation. It makes it just so transparently bogus. Now, the other thing I think is worth pointing out. Preemptive action here shouldn't be off the list of options for companies already in existence. I mean, I don't see why you can't take, a hostile stance to, quote-unquote hostile, stance to New York customers right now and start cutting off those IP addresses now. I mean, there's work that goes into that, so I can see that not being, maybe worth the time until it's required by these regulations, hopefully that, never go through. But yeah, I mean, we could see some kinds of activism where in overseas Bitcoin companies, including these Chinese exchanges who want to offer trading pairs with US dollars with Bitcoins, like OKCoin and other big high-volume exchanges, do this now. Just be out of fear. The rhetoric doesn't have to be a hostile kind, like, up yours, Lawski, we're going to block New York now. But it could just be, oh, we have no idea what to expect, so we're going to just start blocking now, because if we have to report our whole histories, then we just want to show how compliant we are, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's taking New York to pre-IRS direction levels of trepidation and fear, and not just New York, the entire world by extension, because they apply to everybody bi-directionally going in and out. I just noticed a lot later than I thought it was. I really have to get to where, but it's always such a pleasure talking to you guys. I kept forgetting we were live and stuff, and hopefully I didn't say too much, but it's just like talking to my friends. So,
right on, Blake. It's good having you. We'll see you later.
All right, see you guys later.
See you, Blake.
But I think your first point, Will, is a great one, that Lawski already did an AMA. We already tried to talk to him. Lawski already said that he didn't want to crush innovation. But remember, at the speech, he actually said that he would crush 1,000 fires of innovation to catch one criminal. I forgot the exact quote.
Yeah.
But so we've already had this negotiation period, and this is what came out of that already. Right?
Yeah, it's appalling.
There, all of our information's there. The speeches, all these things are there. They clearly didn't look at them. They clearly don't care. They're writing from a bank perspective.
They were dismissive of so much quality material and good points being made by members of the community, or these business leaders, or these legal minds who obviously understand this technology better than he does, and he's aware of that. He's admitted that he's new and trying to learn. So he's certainly,
but he didn't learn. He didn't take any of their information back. We can't look at this document and say, well, where's the evidence that he learned even the smallest thing?
He gave us a big FU, a big up yours, Bitcoin community. Look what we can do, Like, he did not, if he took them into consideration, then it's an even greater affront than if he totally ignored that.
Sure, yeah. If he did consider, he's already thrown out all kinds of scientific evidence and information that was written for him, articles, discussion, web pages,
Yeah, and this is where Bruce Fenton's comments in the video from Chicago, just a few days ago, this is where they ring so true. And, it was controversial in that arena there with a lot of those audience members feeling ruffled by what his comments were because of the kind of leader he is in this community, because of the pull he has, because of his track record, his success as an investor and other projects. So, it was controversial, but you cannot really make a strong argument against the case he was making that, hey, this was all theater on the part of Lawski to get in front of these arenas, do the Reddit AMA and have the hearing and everything else, and clearly, as evidenced by the proposed legislation, totally draconian and ignorant. I mean, the one thing that catches me the most, and this isn't even the thing that makes me the most angry, but it's the thing that just makes it so clear and should make it clear to anybody that he doesn't understand this technology, is that he's deciding to define Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies strictly as monetary units, and it's completely ignorant of the payment network in large respect, or even forget payments, the network itself and the kinds of applications it could bear in the future.
I think your other point was really good too, that the companies should act right now to inform New York of what's going on. They should be writing that software that scans the IPs. If you're in an IP range that's from New York State, and maybe it's more complicated than that, I'm just simplifying, scan those IPs, and like they did with the Internet Freedom issue, with the Stop SOPA page, you bring up a warning page. Warning, user, you are in the state of New York, and this unelected guy, Lawski, has decided he's going to take away your Bitcoin rights. If you think this is okay, click here, continue. Otherwise, click here and write a letter to your congressperson. Like, they need to put those pages up now while it matters, because after this little talking period is over, it's not going to matter. And it's not going to matter anyway. I mean, they can't change the Bitcoin protocol. They can't really change anything.
you feel for guys like Charlie Shrem or others who maybe have cooperated, maybe the Winklevi or whoever, who have cooperated with these regulators in trying to formulate something seemingly constructive. I mean, you know, there's plenty of people in this community who don't think anything ever constructive can come out of cooperating with these folks. But the fact is, they are there. They have a job description which imposes itself, foists themselves upon us, and we have to deal with them. One way to deal with them is to engage them and refute them or educate them. So, you know, in both, you know, it's a matter of, do we actually have a seat at the table, or is this all for show? And I think, you know, the proposed legislation, the proposed regulations indicate that it's all, you know, they're posturing or, you know, inviting the community is all for show. These 45 days is plenty of time to hear from the community, but the deluge they're going to be under will be such that they won't be able to look at everything even a little bit.
It's also the minimum. It's the minimum number of days allowed. So they've chosen to give us the minimum for what could be an incredibly momentous decision for the state of New York. They'll have ramifications for decades. Like, computer geeks aren't going to forget this. When we have to write all that code that blocks the state of New York, that has a special option for the state of New York, oh yeah, we're going to remember. Everyone will remember.
Yeah, and you know, it'll be interesting to see how startups that are incorporated outside the U.S. handle this. I mean, they may block all U.S. customers, not just New York. So this is really, you know, that's another scary ramification. I mean, I'm, you know, not interested in being within a jurisdiction that doesn't allow me to pursue work in the industry that I've chosen, or to pursue free financial behavior that's available to me because of new technology. You know, and nothing I'm doing is illegal whatsoever yet until these regulations come down, right? So, which, you know, I'm not going to put my name on every single Bitcoin address I generate. I mean, that's ridiculous. Some of these addresses have zero balances in them. Do I have to claim to own random numbers that have zero balances? I mean, it's really it's sickening. It's really frustrating to see the direction this is going. And there's precedent here all over the place. There's in New York. I mean, this trial for Ross Ulbricht will be taking place in New York more than likely. It has far-reaching implications, not just for Bitcoin, but for platforms, you know, software platforms like the Silk Road, you know, which is any kind of software platform. Think of Craigslist, think of eBay,
Amazon. Any platform where they allow you to sell something is now under assault because of
the internet itself is a platform that is, if you know, the powers that shouldn't be get what they want out of these cases, these precedents that they're willing to set, you know, it has implications for the internet itself. I mean, you can use email to sell products, and you run, you know, over those protocols. So, yeah, this is, I mean, if anything, we now have a means of communication that allows our voice to be heard. The internet gives us voice, and Bitcoin gives us exit in ways that, and voice too. Bitcoin gives voice too. So are we going to see people voting with their dollars, or are we going to start seeing people voting with their feet? And, you know, I mean, there have been record numbers of big-time wealth renouncing their U.S. citizenship in the last couple of years, because of the way this whole thing's going. There is not a more regulated country in terms of finance on earth than the U.S.
And companies are already leaving the U.S. for Switzerland. Open Transactions is based in Switzerland. Ethereum is based in Switzerland. It's already happening. And why would you allow it to keep happening? Just one more note before we go on the Mt. Gox issue. One of the trustees has left the door open for the revival of the exchange. So there it is. The ghost continues. It never ends. And again, this is just a sad story about people who lost money, and they'll do anything to try to get that money back. And one of the ideas is that you could run the exchange and give the profits from the exchange to these people that have lost their money. And I feel bad for the people that lost their money, and we should do whatever we can to get them part of their return. But you're in a fantasy world if you think people are going to flock back to that exchange that lost everyone's money.
Your point earlier was really good, that, you know, this is, you know, the kinds of empty promises that keep the story in the news are going to be used to kind of keep Bitcoin's name dragged through the mud in whatever way. We always talk about this PR attack and our PR counter strategies or whatever, just getting loud and creating the network, World Crypto Network, and having these shows. But it's really sad. People need to get over this and just like move on. Start other.
We have lots of other exchanges that are good exchanges. We have Kraken, we have Coinbase, we have Bitstamp, BTCE is all right, I guess, so far. And there's other options for you, and there's new exchanges being developed all the time. And Bitcoin doesn't need to talk about this old exchange anymore, except unfortunately this is going to be a long, drawn-out process, with or without Carpellis, with or without Mt. Gox and the bankruptcy and all the other issues. It's going to keep going.
And if this story can come to an end one way, and that is, like you mentioned earlier, Tom, if Carpellis can give up the transaction ID that stole his, the Bitcoins under the custody of Mt. Gox, and allow, what a better way, more cost-effective way of dealing with your issue than, and restoring your name and everything, unless you're guilty, than to give up the piece of evidence that may lead the trail.
They've hired expensive outside security forces to investigate this instead of using the FBI or the police or the Japanese FBI. It doesn't make any sense. Like, if the Bitcoins were really stolen, we should be tracking them on the blockchain. If the Bitcoins were lost due to a computer error, we should be understanding what that computer error is. Either way, I had one idea on this. It's such a long shot, but let's just pretend for a minute that the Bitcoins were stolen, like 800,000 Bitcoins, right? Like hundreds of thousands of them. Wouldn't it be great if the hacker just gave them back? If you were that hacker and you had 800,000 Bitcoins now and you'd stole them and you ruined all these people's lives, you ruined this whole company, all these people are really sad, they lost all their money, you could just give it all back. And I'd like to think if it was a hacker, they would consider giving maybe a lot of it back, like 700,000 of the 800,000. You don't need that many Bitcoins. But, just give it back. Wouldn't that be a great story? Mt. Gox Bitcoins returned. A white hat hacker says he's sorry for exposing security problems in weak-ass company run by one person. That would be a great story.
The other, I'll leave everybody with this. The other far-out scenario would be that the hacker or the thief was really a state-level actor, namely probably the U.S. government or whatever, around the time Mt. Gox's U.S. dollar accounts were seized, 6 months prior to their collapse or so. And what if that actor dumped all these coins on the market in an attempt to drown or suppress Bitcoin in its next price run-up that we're all kind of on pins and needles expecting? And what if whatever exchanges they had accounts on, those exchanges froze those accounts as soon as they saw this large volume of Bitcoins being dumped on? It just prevented that user, that state-level user, from doing that. I like to fantasize about those things too. Like, this community is really good at self-policing, and as long as you don't have really toxic entities that the community depends on, like they did on Mt. Gox for so long, ever since 2011, when they were obviously compromised at that point. That we can avoid that. The community is so robust, even to avoid some massive price volume dump on the market by some malicious actor.
All right, we're almost out of time for today. We've got one more comment from the question. They say, will blocking New York IP addresses be enough? What will you do if you have a business with New York residents who aren't using a New York IP address? And he's absolutely right. We're going to have to expand. We're going to have to block more IP addresses. Probably there's a number of states that border New York. We're probably going to have to block all of their IP addresses as well, because what if a person from New York was in New Jersey and they used Bitcoin while in New Jersey? The state of New York is now...
Or if they use a VPN. That falls on the liabilities on the company to prevent a New York user from using a VPN to mask their IP address to use the service. That's not, that's a criminal act by both the user and, apparently so, based on these regulations as proposed, also the business. So businesses are going to have a huge burden to prevent that liability. It's going to be really difficult on
Where your traffic comes from is now going to matter. I know they had that option on blockchain. You could not use Tor exit nodes. I could see that becoming a legal option now, that something legally enforced. You have to block this IP range. You have to block that IP range. And that's where we're going with this. And again, remember that the internet doesn't care. The internet doesn't care about your stupid laws. The internet doesn't care about your legal career. It doesn't care about all the busts that you've made. The internet sees censorship as damage, and it routes around it. It's done it time and time before, and it'll do it time and time again. Censorship is damage. The things that you're doing are damaging the internet. They're damaging the free flow of information, which may have been an idea you came up with, but we're keeping it. And the free flow of information is something that the internet, with us, without us, there are many like us. We have different names. It'll keep happening. It'll just keep happening. So watch out for that. Good luck, New York State.
Very well said.
All right, we're going to sign off. This is it for Bitcoin Talk Show. We went the epic 3 hours, even though Derek and I were talking about doing only 2. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. The 25 viewers that have been with us since the beginning, very cool. Congrats to you guys, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.